a hesitant confession about a shared love for romance comics from a beautiful blonde classmate catches him completely off guard. But before he can even process her words, the moment is interrupted by a bold red-haired girl warmly grasping his hand. The romantic chaos escalates as a blushing girl in traditional dress nervously approaches, quickly followed by a confident blue-haired beauty. Overwhelmed by these back-to-back heroine clichés, he can only clutch his face in utter disbelief while the entire school whispers his name. This bizarre reality began days earlier. He jolts awake in a hospital bed, greeted by a doctor and a weeping woman. When they ask if he remembers the accident, his mind flashes back to a devastating laboratory fire where he was an ordinary graduate student desperately trying to save his research data. Unable to escape the roaring flames, he had lost consciousness, expecting it be the end. Yet now in this sterile ward, a chilling realization washes over him. His eyes widen in sheer panic as he realizes the youthful reflection staring back isn't his own face. Over the next 2 hazy days, foreign memories slowly bleed into his mind. He discovers he has possessed the body of Yoo Kim, an ordinary middle schooler in Japan who had been trapped in a coma after a violent traffic accident. Sitting in the car, a sudden, sparkling wave of joy overtakes him as he realizes he's finally free from his grueling graduate school life. Though he nervously wonders if he might suddenly snap back to his original body, he resolves to tread carefully. Arriving at his new house, he decides to fully embrace this unexpected second chance, letting his new mother gently guide him inside to rest. Drawn by an eerie muscle memory, he instinctively finds his way to Yoo bedroom. But as he cautiously pushes the door open, his eyes widen in absolute horror at the sprawling shrine of magical girl figures and brightly colored manga. The kid was undeniably a hardcore otaku. Slumping to the floor in defeat, he realizes he has to somehow mimic this bizarre lifestyle to keep his new parents from getting suspicious. The challenge feels incredibly daunting, especially when he spots a cosplay poster featuring a hero wearing his exact same hairstyle and red bracelet. Scrambling backward in sheer disbelief, he realizes the original Yoo based his entire identity around these fictional worlds. Desperate to figure out his new persona, he frantically digs through the massive, chaotic collection of fantasy and action series until a very familiar cover catches his eye. He immediately recognizes Scramble Love, a mega-hit romantic comedy that had famously set the internet on fire. He remembers reading how fans rioted over its controversial finale, where the underdog childhood friend unexpectedly married the protagonist, completely blindsiding the readers and leaving the expected heroines in the dust. Deciding to study the manga just to safely blend in, he opens the first volume, only to find himself completely hooked. After accidentally staying up all night binge reading, an exhausted Yoo rests in his family's cozy restaurant as his mother warmly asks him to help with the morning customers. He ties on an apron to help out at his family's restaurant. However, he is completely blindsided when a very familiar blonde boy walks through the door with an energetic, twin-tailed girl clinging to his arm. As the girl brightly demands to feed him, the boy awkwardly introduces himself as Ryuji Sakamoto. Yoo heart skips a beat as he immediately recognizes the main protagonist of Scramble Love. Staring at the pair in absolute shock, a horrifying realization hits him. This wasn't just a simple reincarnation. He had been dropped straight into the fictional world of a manga. Recalling his sudden death in a lab fire, he pieces together the horrifying truth. He is now stuck playing the role of a completely irrelevant background extra in a story he never even bothered to read. With zero advantage and no desire for drama, he decides his best survival strategy is to completely avoid the protagonist. He vows to just live quietly in the background, untouched by the romantic comedy chaos. Throwing himself into his new reality, he completely sheds his embarrassing otaku image. He studies relentlessly to secure a full scholarship and joins the student council at a high school far away from the original plot. Yet, as time passes and he remains trapped in this world, he nervously looks for ways to prepare for his future. With no money to invest, he struggles to find a practical safety net. Eventually, he decides the best investment is his own physical stamina. throwing himself into intense daily workouts. To his surprise, the simple, rewarding progress of building muscle becomes his new obsession, bringing him genuine joy. Spring arrives, marking the start of a new school year. As he strides across the cherry blossom-filled courtyard toward the class assignment boards, other students can't help but stare in awe. Gone is the awkward otaku of the past, replaced by a young man smiling with quiet confidence. A classmate suddenly calls out his name, asking which homeroom he got. Yu-song turns around, his chiseled features and massively built physique leaving the boy stunned. Having safely advanced to his second year, he casually replies that he hasn't checked yet, ready to face whatever comes next. Stepping onto the school grounds for his second year, Kim Yu-seong reflects on how fast time has flown. To survive in the unpredictable world of a romantic comedy manga, he's spent the last few months working out intensely, managing to get insanely buff just to protect himself. Since anything from ghosts to yakuza can pop up out of nowhere in this genre, he considers his new muscles a simple necessity for an uncertain future. Content with his peaceful life so far, he resolves to make this new school year just as quiet. That resolution shatters the moment he walks into class. Despite purposely choosing a school far from the main plot, Yu-song finds himself in the exact same room as the original manga's protagonist, Ryuji Sakamoto, and the main heroine, Mai. His day is already off to a terrible start after losing his wallet and inexplicably bumping into a strange girl on the street. Before he can dwell on it, the homeroom teacher steps to the front of the chaotic room, calling for quiet to make an important announcement. The moment the teacher announces a transfer student, a beautiful blonde girl steps through the door. With a bright, confident smile, she instantly captures the entire classroom's attention. She introduces herself cheerfully as Rika Kishimoto. Watching her, Yu-seong immediately recognizes her as another major heroine. The undisputed fan favorite in the popularity polls, even if she didn't win the protagonist's heart in the original story. The heroine clichés are already kicking in. The teacher points directly at the empty desk next to the protagonist, telling Ryuji to take good care of their new classmate. But as Ryuji looks up, he freezes in shock, recognizing her as the violent girl he ran into that very morning. Pointing an accusatory finger, Rika instantly recognizes Ryuji and loudly brands him a pervert for their earlier collision. Ryuji angrily denies it, but their oblivious teacher happily notes their prior connection and urges the grumbling new girl to take her seat. Rika drops into her chair with a fierce glare, huffing indignantly before begrudgingly returning the wallet Ryuji dropped that morning. Watching their classic romantic tension unfold right beside him, Yu-seong rubs his temples, silently wishing he could transfer to a normal school. When the bell rings for break, Yu-seong lends a manga to a classmate, treating his otaku hobby as vital survival research. Since he never actually read the story this world is based on, studying common romantic comedy tropes is his only defense against the plot. His research proves accurate when Ryuji suddenly approaches Rika, asking her to follow him outside for a private chat to clear up their morning collision. As the flushed heroine agrees, Yu-seong casually excuses himself to the restroom, secretly intending to tail them. Out in the hallway, Yu-seong's massive, imposing physique parts the terrified student body like the Red Sea. He sighs wearily as wild whispers circulate about him being an underworld assassin or a yakuza boss, annoyed that getting fit caused such terrifying misunderstandings. Shaking off the fearful stares, he focuses on his actual mission. To accurately navigate this unpredictable reality, he needs to witness the main couple's development firsthand. Knowing his manga clichés perfectly, Yu-song heads straight for the undisputed stage of secret high school conversations. The back of the school. Yu-song observes from the safety of the bushes as the male lead drops into a dramatic, cringeworthy apology bow. It's exactly the kind of cliché scene expected of a rom-com protagonist. The blonde heroine initially stares at him coldly, before bursting into a bright fit laughter. She easily brushes off the morning's accident, teasing him for being surprisingly innocent. Watching the school's most popular girl playfully pull the protagonist along confirms everything for Yu-song. It's the picture-perfect start to their romantic comedy, and as a mere extra, He just needs to stay out of the way. His quiet observation is suddenly interrupted when someone calls his name. It's Kumiko Sayonji, the powerful student council president. Though originally designed as a tragic villainess, she's still a main character destined to get tangled up with the protagonist. Caught creeping in the bushes, Yu Seong scrambles for an excuse. Desperate to maintain his ordinary persona, he nervously holds up a torn branch, claiming he thought it would look nice as a decoration for the student council room. He expects a harsh scolding for the weak lie, but instead Kumiko's eyes soften. A faint blush spreads across her cheeks as she gently accepts the branch, timidly promising to display it since he picked it out for her. Yu Seong is completely bewildered that his random excuse actually worked. Before he can escape, Kumiko steps closer, her tone brightening as she invites him to join the student council members for a meal. She eagerly leads the way toward the student cafeteria, catching him off guard again. When he points out that standard cafeteria food hardly suits a wealthy president, she pauses and shoots him a smug, playful glance over her shoulder. Laughing behind her fan, she proudly declares that she's perfectly cultured in commoner cuisine, bragging about enjoying a spicy pork rice bowl. Her proud moment shatters instantly when he bluntly informs her the school cafeteria doesn't actually serve that. Yu Seong helpfully suggests that the cafeteria serves something similar called a beef bowl. Kumiko freezes, her pride warring with her unfamiliarity. She nervously clutches the torn branch, internally panicking over the commoner's junk food, though she refuses to admit defeat after bragging just moments ago. The awkward standoff is suddenly interrupted by Shinjiro Akagai, the stern student council vice president. Approaching to remind Kumiko that her expensive Wagyu steak is getting cold, he notices Yu Seong and immediately glares. Pushing up his glasses, Shinjiro begins loudly scolding Yu Seong for neglecting his council duties. Shinjiro fiercely declares that the poor president skipped her meal just to search the grounds for him. Hearing this, Yu Seong tilts his head in total confusion. Mortified by the sudden exposure, Kumiko turns beet red and leaps between them, frantically waving her arms and denying that she was ever sad. While Shinjiro dramatically pledges his life to protect his lady's honor, Kumiko desperately grabs his arm and drags him away before he can embarrass her further. As the fiercely loyal vice president shouts fading threats over his shoulder, Yu Seong is left standing alone in the grass, utterly bewildered by the chaotic encounter. After school, Yu Seong heads to the subway station, feeling relieved. He knows that today marks the official start of the manga's main storyline, but thanks to his intimidating physique, everyone avoids him. Content with his quiet life, he firmly decides to stay out of the protagonist's way and avoid any plot entanglements. With 10 minutes until his train arrives, he casually buys a canned drink from a vending machine. Listening to the satisfying crack of the tab, Yu Seong smiles to himself. He is perfectly happy living an ordinary, peaceful life as a background extra, while the main characters handle the drama. His peaceful moment shatters when a cheerful voice suddenly calls out to him. Rika Kishimoto, the beautiful blonde transfer student and main heroine, bounds up to him with a bright smile, recognizing him from class. Yu Seong's eyes widen in sheer panic, completely horrified, as he wonders why the main heroine is talking to him instead of the protagonist. While standing near the vending machines, Yu Seong is unexpectedly approached by a cheerful blonde girl from his class. Relieved to see him, she casually asks for directions, catching him completely off guard. He points the way, but hesitates, questioning how she even knows his name. With a bright, playful smile, she gently taps the name tag pinned right to his chest. Realizing his foolish oversight, Yu Seong freezes in sudden embarrassment. He hadn't even considered that his own uniform was giving him away the entire time. Stifling a small laugh behind her hand, her eyes soften with genuine warmth. She happily declares that he really is a good person, just as she suspected. Her earnest compliment leaves him momentarily stunned, unsure of how to process her sudden affection. Utterly confused, he asks what she means and why she would even remember an extra like him in the first place. She simply smiles, explaining that he is exactly the kind of person she imagined he would be. She admits his intimidating aura is impossible to miss. Despite wild rumors painting him as a terrifying delinquent, she noticed how seriously he takes his classes. As she praises his comfortable nature, Yuseong panics internally. He realizes that Rika Kishimoto, the manga's most popular heroine, has completely misunderstood his character. Knowing her reputation as a universally kind heroine, he frantically considers flexing his muscles to scare her away and protect his peaceful life. However, his internal crisis is abruptly shattered when Rika loudly calls his name, snapping him back to reality. Pouting playfully, she scolds him for spacing out and ignoring her compliment. Flustered, he mutters a clumsy apology and a hesitant thank you. Her expression softens as she assures him that the rest of the class just misunderstands his scary exterior. Standing together in the quiet hall, she promises that until everyone else realizes how nice he actually is, she will gladly be his friend. Her radiant, open-hearted declaration leaves Yuseong silently staring at her, completely disarmed by her sincerity. He quickly realizes that with her stubbornly kind personality, trying to scare her off wouldn't have worked anyway. Resigning himself to the inevitable connection, he vows to maintain his act as a plain extra. He formally accepts her friendship, causing her to beam with absolute joy. Suddenly remembering her original problem, Rika shows him the address of her new house on his phone. Seeing she lives in a highly wealthy neighborhood, Yuseong reveals his own station is on the exact same subway line. Hearing this, Rika excitedly declares that they were meant to meet. Yuseong panics internally, knowing full well she is supposed to be the fateful heroine for the manga's actual main character, making this coincidence extremely problematic. However, a sudden realization strikes him. Since he hasn't actually read the original manga and only knows its basic tropes, acting blindly as an extra is dangerous. Gathering information directly from the main heroine would be much safer. He figures that safely befriending her now might even allow him to play wingman for the main couple later. Confident this won't ruin the plot, he flashes a dark, calculating smirk. Deciding to lean into his new role, he offers to buy her a drink as thanks. Rika happily chooses a cola, chugging it down and letting out a brightly satisfied sigh at the crisp carbonation. When he notes her enthusiasm, she admits she avoids soda to maintain her figure. Pulling out her phone, she proudly shows off a glamorous photo, revealing she used to be a fashion magazine model in her hometown. Yuseong squints at the screen, teasingly pointing out that heavy makeup makes her look completely different. As Rika angrily protests the accusation, their train finally arrives, and he quickly changes the subject to escape her flustered wrath. Once they board, the atmosphere immediately shifts. The other passengers take one look at Yuseong's intimidating physique, and terrified whispers break out, mistaking him for a dangerous mobster and nervously clearing a wide path around them. Enjoying the unexpected extra space, Rika giggles, joking that having a scary friend comes with great perks. Ignoring his weary sigh, she cheerfully points to the transit map, eager to navigate the rest of their journey together. As they navigate the confusing station, Yuseong confidently leads the way while Rika struggles to follow her map. When he casually threatens to leave her behind, she playfully complains about his cold attitude and hurries aboard the train. 2 stops before her own station, Yuseong finally steps off. Just as the doors begin to close, Rika calls out his name. Smiling brightly, she waves goodbye and cheerfully promises to see him again tomorrow. Left standing on the quiet platform, Yuseong stares after the departing train. Her casual expectation of spending more time together catches him completely off guard, leaving him to quietly wonder why the main heroine is so attached to a simple extra. When lunchtime rolls around, Yuseong slips away to a quiet spot near the parking lot. Knowing his otaku persona makes his classmates uncomfortable, he's perfectly happy eating his gimbap alone. But his peaceful solitude breaks when a familiar voice calls his name. He turns to find Rika trembling on the verge of tears, completely devastated that he's been isolating himself by the garbage dump. He gently assures her it's his own choice, throwing her own words back at her to prove he's just patiently waiting for true friends. Rika stubbornly insists that no one should have to eat by themselves. However, her heartfelt concerns instantly derails the moment her eyes lock onto his lunchbox. Her tears vanish in a flash, replaced by pure excitement at seeing authentic Korean gimbap in person. Completely bewildered by how fast she stopped crying, he awkwardly agrees to share. Beaming with delight, Rika cheerfully declares they need to eat lunch together from now on, then defensively snaps at him when he teases that she's only after his food. Sharing a bench in the warm afternoon sun, she happily savors every bite while praising his family's restaurant. Watching her bright smile, Yu-song realizes just how comfortably close he's managed to get with the manga's most popular heroine. Wanting to return the favor, Rika proudly offers him a piece of Japanese rolled omelet from her own carefully packed bento. He takes a bite, expecting a savory treat, only to be violently blindsided by a mind-numbing, entirely unreasonable explosion of pure sugar. Genuinely horrified by her terrifyingly sweet palate, he passionately vows to save her health by teaching her how to make a proper zero-sugar omelet next time. When he reveals the secret ingredient is simply salt, Rika looks at him like he's lost his mind. She playfully brushes off his savory recipe as a bizarre quirk, completely missing his genuine concern for her blood sugar. But their comfortable banter is abruptly cut short when a loud, startling flash of light erupts right next to them in the bushes. The sudden interruption in the bushes turns out to be the student council president blowing a whistle, furiously, marching up to their bench with a male upperclassman in tow. She fiercely accuses them of engaging in an inappropriate relationship just for eating together in a secluded spot. Yu-song calmly deflects the ridiculous accusation, noting that this supposed random patrol feels a bit too targeted to be a mere coincidence. But before the strict upperclassman can scold him further for making excuses, Rika leans in close, inspecting the glaring president with innocent curiosity. Her face suddenly lights up in recognition as she cheerfully declares she's finally met the legendary Dark Student Council president. She happily mentions the school rumors about the president's all-black uniform, completely oblivious to how her cheerful honesty is hitting the proud girl like daggers. Rika genuinely tries to offer a sweet word of encouragement, assuring the president that it's perfectly okay if everyone teases her for cosplaying. The word delivers a crushing blow to the poor girl's pride, and Rika innocently offering her a piece of egg only makes the humiliation worse. Utterly devastated and trembling with embarrassment, the president passionately vows revenge before fleeing the scene in tears. As her frantic lackey chases after her, Rika genuinely wonders if she said something wrong, leaving Yu-song completely speechless at her unintentional savagery. Later that afternoon, the school bell rings to end the day's classes. Yu-song is quietly sitting at his desk when Rika suddenly bounces into the room with her bag, flashing him a bright smile as she asks why he hasn't headed home yet. Spotting a club promotional booklet on his desk, she explains that since stepping down from the student council, she finally has some free time. Eager to make the most of it, she cheerfully invites him to go check out the club trials together. Yu-song readily agrees, standing up from his desk to join her. However, he catches Rika completely off guard when he declares his plan to visit every single sports club available. Radiating an intense, competitive aura, he vows to test just how far his physical strength will take him. At the school's soccer field, a couple of delinquents hog the pitch, completely missing the goal despite multiple attempts. The actual club members can only watch in frustration as the thugs laugh off their terrible kicks. When the actual team tries to reclaim their practice space, the delinquents aggressively push back. But their arrogance vanishes the moment the third-year captain, 0-60 Ryohei, steps onto the field, sending the intruders scrambling with just a cold glare. As the thugs flee, the grateful team thanks their captain. However, Ryohei's mind is focused entirely on nationals, privately lamenting the severe lack of talent among this year's freshmen. Outside the school, the humiliated delinquents grumble about their embarrassing retreat. While one stubbornly insists he could easily take down the soccer captain in a real street fight, his angry boasting blinds him to where he's walking. He hard shoulders a passing student and furiously spins around to curse them out, only to freeze in sheer terror. Standing over him is Kim Yu-seong, whose intimidating, intensely dark glare completely masks his harmless desire to just live quietly. Screaming about the terrifying successor of the assassination fist, the bullies sprint for their lives. Yuseong is left utterly bewildered by the bizarre title, while nearby students whisper in awe about him defeating thugs with a single glance. His blonde companion sighs, immediately scolding him for picking fights when his only goal is to make normal friends. He protests that he merely looked their way, but she firmly reminds him that his resting glare feels like a death threat, still oblivious to the terrifying aura he naturally projects. Yu Xiang and his companion wander over to the athletic field. The moment his heavy footsteps arrive, the entire soccer team freezes in absolute panic, terrified the infamous fighter has come to violently dismantle their club. Ryohei steps in to calm his panicking team, telling them not to overreact. But the club members are already sweating, convinced the infamous troublemaker is only here to cause chaos. Acknowledging the nasty rumors, the captain watches him cautiously. Yet, as he takes in Yuseong's intensely intimidating presence, Ryohei assumes a guy built like a national-level boss must have a serious ulterior motive. After formally introducing himself, Ryohei asks what brings him to the field. He's completely caught off guard when Yuseong simply asks to try out for the team. Staring at the freshman's overwhelming physical specs, the captain immediately visualizes winning nationals and aggressively decides he needs him. Snapping out of his sudden daydream, Ryohei explains the entry test is just a single penalty kick. Told to hit the ball as hard as he can, Yuseong takes the instruction completely to heart. Channeling his maximum powerlifting strength, he steps up to the line. With a dark, terrifying aura flaring around him, he launches a massive strike that sends a huge shockwave across the turf, leaving the team breathless. Ryohei praises the incredible, invisible shot, only to realize the net is completely empty. Looking down in absolute disbelief, he finds the soccer ball instantly popped right on the starting line. Realizing he doesn't know his own strength, Yuseong awkwardly decides soccer isn't for him and wanders off toward the basketball gym. Left behind, the terrified captain assumes the monster is on a ruthless crusade to crush every athletic club in school. As panicked whispers about a one-man dojo hunt sweep through the halls, students rush to watch the carnage. The commotion catches the attention of a serious-looking girl with a wooden sword, who notes with interest that Kim Yu-seong is finally making his move. After accidentally shattering a basketball backboard, unleashing a terrifying shockwave with a wooden baseball bat, and leaving a literal crater in the concrete tennis court, Yu-seong leaves a long trail of petrified students in his wake. Completely unfazed by his chaotic display of brute strength, Rika cheerfully marks off a bingo on her club list, leaving him to anxiously word just how many sports teams are left to inadvertently ruin today. Eager to show off her extensive research on the school's activities, Rika dramatically pulls out a pair of glasses from thin air. She strikes a proud intellectual pose, absolutely ready to deliver a perfect statistical breakdown to a deeply bewildered Yuseong. She enthusiastically lists the final 3 options holding tryouts today. From building core stamina on the running track and intense cardiovascular endurance in the swimming pool, to cultivating mental fortitude through kendo, she presents each potential choice with the vibrant flair of a seasoned tour guide. While he appreciates her dramatic and helpful presentation, her surprisingly natural performance catches his attention. When he gently asks if she has ever acted before besides her modeling gigs, her confident smile immediately vanishes. A deep, nervous flush spreads across her cheeks, entirely catching him off guard. Fiddling nervously with her hair, Rika averts her gaze and shyly admits that she did do something similar to acting in the past. Her cheeks burn crimson as she confesses that her previous work is simply too embarrassing to discuss with anyone at school. Her blushing hesitation sends his overactive otaku imagination spiraling into full panic. He momentarily fears the worst possible mature backstory for a transferred Japanese heroine, but quickly calms himself, realizing that a wholesome mainstream romance manga would never actually allow such a scandalous plotline. Before he can overthink the mystery any further, Rika reaches out, gently grabbing his arm to quickly change the subject. Seeing her frantic attempt to escape the awkward conversation, he kindly decides it is best not to pry, trusting her warm smile as she happily leads him toward their final destination. News of his earlier athletic rampage has already reached the gymnasium. As he steps through the doors with a naturally intimidating scowl, the terrified upperclassmen whisper rumors of a violent school takeover. Despite Rika walking cheerfully by his side, his fierce reputation leaves the broadcasting club completely paralyzed with fear. Fully leaning into the absurdity of the situation, Rika pops on her glasses and proudly declares herself as his official manager, ready to handle all press inquiries. Yu Seong can only blink in silent confusion as she perfectly deflects the trembling broadcasting club with startling professionalism. Before the misunderstanding can escalate any further, crisp footsteps echo across the gymnasium floor. Fuma Yukika, the imposing third-year captain of the kendo club, steps into the light with a fierce glare, boldly declaring that his violent thug rampage to crush the school's sports teams ends with her. As the terrified upperclassmen wildly cheer for their fearless leader, Yusong simply holds up a wooden practice sword, calmly asking how the normal tryouts actually work. Deeply unimpressed by his apparent arrogance, Yukika coldly challenges him to a sudden death one-point match. Slinging her weapon over her shoulder with practiced ease, she demands he step inside the dojo to face her directly. The hallway immediately erupts into a frenzied spectacle, with students eagerly raising their phones to record the epic showdown between their esteemed captain and the school's terrifying new human weapon. Hearing the crowd desperately beg Yukika to wipe the floor with him, Yu Seong drops his shoulders, painfully aware that he has completely cemented his role as the ultimate villain. His internal groaning is instantly shattered by a sudden, deafening shout from the captain, demanding absolute silence. The cheering instantly dies down as she strictly bans all spectators from entering the dojo. Her eyes glow with a terrifying, bloodthirsty aura, as she promises to mercilessly strike down anyone who dares to interrupt their private duel, freezing the entire hallway in stunned terror. Watching the aggressive students shrink back in genuine fear, Rika nervously whispers that this particular captain feels completely different from the others. Yu Seong quietly agrees, sensing a dense, venomous pressure radiating from Yukika, like a massive, coiled serpent preparing for a deadly strike. After leaving Rika safely behind in the corridor, Yu Seong steps onto the polished wooden floor. Because none of the protective gear is large enough to fit his broad, muscular frame, Yukika strictly honors the rules of fairness, discarding her own armor so they can fight on equal footing. Gripping the hilt of his wooden sword, he casually warns the much smaller girl that he will not be held responsible if she gets severely injured. An amused smirk immediately crosses her face as she lowers her stance, genuinely entertained by his sheer, unwavering audacity. Completely unfazed by his warning, Yukika confidently declares that he won't even be able to graze her clothes. Gripping her wooden sword with an intense, unwavering focus, she coldly tells him to prepare himself as their high-stakes sudden death match finally begins. The kendo hall echoes with sharp strikes as Yu Song finds himself locked in a fierce duel. His opponent, Yukika, presses the attack, entirely convinced that a regular guy stands no chance against a trained martial artist. Despite her relentless flurry of blows, Yu Song deflects each strike with casual ease, steadily pushing her back. But Yukika is quick to spot an opening, twisting past his guard to knock the bamboo sword right out of his hands. Triumphant, she mocks him for falling for such a simple trick, until Yu Song lets out a menacing laugh. Moving with terrifying speed, he snatches his falling weapon mid-air, leaving Yukika sweating as she realizes she's facing an absurd, monstrous fighting spirit. Realizing he had intentionally lowered his guard to bait her, Yukika gulps. Knowing she'll lose if the fight drags on, she channels her clan's secret technique, a venomous, immediate strike, and lunges forward to finish him with one devastating thrust. The blow connects dead center. Yukika boasts that no one has ever survived the technique, but her triumph turns to shock as the impact violently recoils. Her bamboo sword shatters against him, completely repelled by Yusong's overwhelming, hidden muscle armor. The next morning, wild rumors tear through the school. Whispers claim Yusong wrecked the entire sports department and sent the kendo captain to the hospital just to assert dominance. He sweats at his desks, overwhelmed by his newly inflated, terrifying reputation. Fortunately, Ryuji, the story's true protagonist, seems completely unfazed by the school-wide gossip. Yu Seong breathes a sigh of relief, perfectly happy to stay a background extra, right as Rika cheerfully greets him as if nothing has changed. Suddenly, the quiet morning is shattered as the classroom door slides open with a violent bang. A fiery red-haired girl storms in, immediately screaming for Sakamoto Ryuji. The surrounding whispers quickly identify her as Tojo Karen, a fierce member of the kendo club. Marching right up to a bewildered Ryuji, she furiously confronts him, accusing the golden boy of mercilessly beating up her first-year members and landing them in the hospital. Ryuji sweats nervously, desperately trying to explain that it's a massive misunderstanding. But before he can defuse the situation, another girl leaps directly between them. She fiercely defends him, throwing the blame right back at the kendo club. She reveals that Karen's so-called victims were actually harassing her in an isolated alleyway, and Ryuji bravely stepped in as her savior. Glaring defiantly at the intruder, she demands Karen take responsibility and properly discipline her own reckless club members. The harsh truth completely blindsides Karen. As the aggressive facade crumbles, a startling realization takes over her mind. The boy standing in front of her isn't a ruthless delinquent, but a valiant hero who risked himself for someone else. Her furious expression instantly melts into an intense, completely smitten blush. Pointing a trembling finger straight at the dumbfounded protagonist, Karen loudly demands that he become her man, practically shouting her promise to make him the happiest guy alive. The sudden proposal sends a shockwave through the classroom. While Ryuji remains utterly paralyzed, his fierce defender completely short-circuits, screaming in frantic, absolute denial as the kendo girl confidently claims his arm. Watching the chaos unfold from the sidelines, Yusong breaks into a cold sweat. He instantly recognizes this terrifyingly familiar romantic comedy trope, a spontaneous confession attack, triggering an unavoidable war between rival heroines. But while Yusong secretly panics over the escalating plot, Rika simply watches the dramatic love triangle with starry-eyed delight. The classroom is absolutely buzzing with gossip over who the school's most popular guy, Sakamoto, is going to choose. While the other students fiercely debate the merits of the different girls vying for his attention, Ryu just rests his chin on his hand, bored by the relentless drama. After the red-haired girl dropped her explosive confession yesterday, Ryu wants nothing more than to stay out of the spotlight. But his quiet morning is interrupted when the energetic Rika approaches his desk, flashing a wide smile as she asks for his personal prediction on Sakamoto's love life. Playing it safe, Ryu feigns ignorance. Since he possesses knowledge of the original story, he knows for a fact that Sakamoto is meant to end up with his sweet childhood friend, Maya. However, Rika completely blindsides him with a confident wink, declaring that Sakamoto is definitely going to date Tojo. There is a hilarious catch, though. Rika insists this will only happen if she personally steps in to offer Tojo her expert dating advice. Ryu can only stare at her overwhelming confidence in disbelief, internally noting the glaring issue that Tojo has absolutely no idea who Rika even is. The following morning, Ryu arrives at school only to freeze right at the classroom door. To his surprise, the fierce, red-haired Tojo is already inside, sitting quietly by the window with her arms crossed, looking completely out of place. His classmate Satoru immediately pulls him aside, whispering that she's been waiting around to corner Sakamoto into a weekend apology meal, which sounds suspiciously like a date. Leaning in closer, Satoru nervously brings up a dark rumor that Tojo is actually the daughter of someone incredibly powerful. Satoru reveals that she's allegedly the heir to the head of the Daosei clan, a massive Yakuza organization that controls the entire Kanto region. Ryu tries to play it cool, offering a flat, indifferent response that leaves Satoru visibly frustrated by his lack of panic. While he jokingly dismisses Satoru's cowardly warnings, a sudden realization hits Ryu. Since he is currently living inside the unpredictable world of a romance comedy manga, a dangerous Yakuza heroine trope is entirely possible. His quiet panic is suddenly shattered when Tojo leaps to her feet, aggressively shouting Sakamoto's name. Tojo's aggressive courtship kicks off instantly as she furiously corners Sakamoto in the hallway, completely ignoring the other girls trying to defend his personal space. Watching his classmates weep with intense jealousy over the situation, Ryu just sighs, incredibly relieved that the actual protagonist is the one taking all the heat. However, her relentless pursuit quickly escalates into sheer, inescapable chaos. Tojo fearlessly interrupts ongoing classes and even bursts into the boys' locker room and restroom, leaving a completely exhausted Sakamoto begging for a break from her incredibly forceful demands for a weekend date. Later in the cafeteria, the chaotic mood shifts into something much softer when Rika cheerfully joins Ryu for lunch. Hearing that he has absolutely no plans for the upcoming Golden Week holiday, besides working at his family's restaurant, she boldly invites him over to her house. Knowing exactly how to tempt the closet otaku, Rika casually mentions that her father owns a massive cafe-sized manga collection. Unable to resist the incredible lure of endless free reading material, Ryu eagerly agrees to call her so they can set up a visit. As they enjoy their meal, Ryu absent-mindedly points out Rika's surprisingly massive appetite. She confidently replies that she simply needs a filling lunch, claiming she's the type who doesn't gain weight very easily. But she quickly follows it up by happily bragging that all those extra calories just go straight to her chest. She intentionally baits Ryu into glancing down in shock, just so she can playfully scold him for being a total pervert. Their light-hearted banter is instantly derailed when Tojo abruptly slams her lunch tray down right at their table. While Ryu completely freezes in a quiet panic at the fierce Yakuza Harris's sudden proximity, Rika just beams with sheer excitement, seizing the perfect opportunity. Leaping to her feet, Rika confidently introduces herself to the confused redhead before flashing a smug, knowing smile. She casually offers to personally step in and help Tojo secure her dream date with Sakamoto. To Ryu's utter disbelief, Tojo's intimidating exterior completely crumbles. The tough girl leans in, desperately asking if Rika really is the famous dating expert she's heard rumors about. Rika points out that Tojo's constant visits make her crush on Sakamoto completely obvious. Panicking, the tough heiress desperately covers Rika's mouth to quiet her down before shyly admitting that she really does need some romantic advice. Walking home later, Ryu reflects on how bizarre the situation is. Rika had eagerly arranged for all of them to meet up after school, completely ignoring the fact that she and Tojo are supposed to be fierce love rivals in the original story. Deciding to clear his head, Ryu hits the local gym for some heavy exercise. But his peaceful workout is instantly interrupted when a familiar voice calls out to him. He turns around in utter shock, finding himself face-to-face with the incredibly fit Fuma Yukika. Kim Yu-seong runs into Fuma Yukika at the local gym, where she admits her club activities just aren't providing enough of a workout. She's surprised to see him, prompting an awkward laugh. Seeing the other members flexing extra hard to impress the beautiful girl, Kim isn't surprised by the commotion. However, when he mentions he recently moved to the neighborhood, a loud, booming voice interrupts them. The overly enthusiastic gym owner suddenly assigns Kim to be Yukika's personal trainer. Wrapping an arm around the boy, the old man whispers that she obviously followed him there out of affection, leaving Yukika blushing at the massive misunderstanding. To the girl's absolute horror, the owner loads the barbell with a supposedly light 220 kilos. But the veteran trainer knows exactly what he's doing, and Kim effortlessly squats the massive weight. Even when they push the load to 270 kilos, Kim breezes through 5 full sets. Watching him rest, Yukika stares in disbelief at what she considers pure self-abuse, realizing his strength defies common sense. She concludes he must possess the mythical ultimate yang physique, a legendary constitution mirroring the ancient heroes. Remembering their recent clash of blades, she secretly resolves to report this dangerous anomaly to her superiors. The absurd manga tropes only escalate the next day. Arriving at a massive traditional estate with his other classmates, Kim breaks into a nervous sweat when a legion of bowing subordinates reveals he's casually hanging out at a Yakuza clan's headquarters. Tojo's overzealous subordinates burst into the room, absolutely convinced Kim's imposing frame and intense aura belong to a rival syndicate spy. As the giant high schooler stands close frozen, Tojo furiously kicks the men out, deeply humiliated by her family's antics. She quickly apologizes for the dramatic misunderstanding. Though Kim tries to excuse himself from their relationship counseling, Kishimoto firmly ropes him back in, insisting a male perspective is exactly what they need to capture Sakamoto's attention. Declaring herself a seasoned love expert, the blonde girl announces their first crucial step: preparing a flawless, home-cooked meal. Despite Kim cringing at her third-person boasting, they immediately get to work in the clan's massive kitchen. After a grueling effort, Tojo proudly presents her very first handmade lunchbox. However, Kim knows the polished final result hides a terrifying fire-filled struggle, having barely survived the classic, chaotic rom-com cooking disaster that created it. The lingering aroma makes Kim hungry, so he casually takes over the stove. With practiced ease, he whips up a massive batch of perfect fried rice, leaving the girls completely mesmerized as they eagerly devour the delicious meal. Impressed, Kishimoto asks how he learned to cook so well. Kim gently explains he started packing his own meals to help his exhausted mother, a heartfelt confession that leaves Kishimoto teary-eyed, while she jokingly shames Tojo for relying on her mom. Suddenly remembering her actual plan, Kishimoto hands Tojo a carefully prepared gift bag. It's packed with essential skincare and makeup, complete with a detailed guide to help the tomboy prepare for a real date. The self-appointed romance guru then declares that clothes shopping is next on their agenda. She bluntly roasts Tojo's current wardrobe as old manish, leaving the poor girl utterly mortified while Kim quietly marvels at Kishimoto's brutal honesty. Excited to begin the makeover, Kishimoto tells Kim to wait outside. Though Kim is confused since she originally wanted a male perspective, the blonde girl insists it's a crime to watch a woman transform as she drags a nervous Tojo away. Walking home together later that evening, Kishimoto genuinely hopes Tojo's romantic efforts succeed. Suddenly, spotting a convenience store, Kim asks to stop and pick up the latest manga magazine, prompting an enthusiastic response from his companion. Inside, she spots his selection and happily reveals she buys the exact same series every week. Recalling her father's belief that manga lovers are good people, she playfully asks if that makes her a good person too. Kim answers with complete sincerity. He points out how hard she worked all day just to help Tojo, gently declaring that anyone that dedicated to a friend is definitely a good person. His honest praise leaves her completely flustered. Stuttering about the late hour, Kishimoto immediately scrambles to pay and dashes out the door. Left completely bewildered, the dense high schooler assumes she just had a sudden bathroom emergency. The next morning, the school hallways erupt into whispers. Students stop and stare as a stunning red-haired girl confidently strides toward Class 2B, tightly gripping a sealed letter. Marching right up to Sakamoto's desk, she abruptly hands him the envelope, clumsily framing her weekend invitation as a formal challenge. Confused by the sudden attention, Sakamoto doesn't even recognize the beautifully transformed tomboy standing right in front of him. Arriving in Shibuya, Rika eagerly leads the way, teasing Karen about her intense school confession earlier that day. Flustered but happy, the red-haired girl asks to be called by her first name, cementing their new bond. Finding himself in the unfamiliar territory of a women's clothing store, Ryuji feels completely out of his depth. He only tagged along because Rika insisted they had to help pick out Karen's outfit for her upcoming date. Spotting the perfect dress, Rika excitedly drags a hesitant Karen toward the fitting rooms. When Karen protests that the cute style doesn't suit her at all, the blonde playfully forces her inside, promising to take care of everything. Ryuji waits awkwardly outside the curtain, listening to rustling and Karen's flustered pleas for gentleness. When she finally steps out, nervously clutching to the hem of a skirt she finds far too short, Rika looks on with pride. Seeking a second opinion, they ask for his thoughts. When Ryuji offers a genuine compliment on how well the outfit suits her, Karen's face flushes, beautifully transformed by the effort she put in. Meanwhile, a far darker atmosphere hangs over the Tojo clan mansion. The terrifying sixth chairman of the Yakuza syndicate, Blood Sea Naoto, calls an emergency meeting to discuss a grave matter regarding his daughter. Slamming a knife into the table, the overprotective father declares he will never give Karen away to just anyone. His men tremble as he demands his intelligence officer confirm the identity of this audacious boy. The officer reports that Ryuji Sakamoto has been accompanying her on shopping trips. Realizing they have a date scheduled for this weekend, the chairman erupts in a blind rage, ordering every free man in the syndicate to assemble and hunt him down. The Tojo clan executives mobilize with terrifying efficiency, vowing to tail Karen and eliminate the punk named Sakamoto before he can try anything. With the furious chairman leading them, the entire syndicate prepares for a massive hunt. Unaware of the impending danger, the trio heads to a fast food joint to recover from their shopping trip. Karen warmly thanks Rika for all her help, deeply grateful for her new friend's continuous support. Watching Yusong happily devour his meal while offering to buy her more, if she's hungry, Karen feels her perception of him shifting. She realizes that beneath his intimidating exterior lies a genuinely attentive and caring boy, a thought that leaves her blushing when he catches her staring. When Yusong asks about her date plans, Karen casually suggests a simple cafe and a movie. Horrified by how basic that sounds, Rika immediately steps in, fiercely insisting they go to an aquarium instead to ensure a perfectly romantic, dimly lit atmosphere. Yielding to the self-proclaimed love master's advice, Karen happily agrees to the plan. As the sun begins to set, Yusong and Rika wave goodbye, wishing her the best of luck on her big day. But Rika isn't finished yet. Learning that Yusong only plans to read comics all weekend, she passionately declares that she may sponsor for tasks until the very end. Exhausted but compliant, he agrees to help her tail their friend, forming an unlikely espionage duo. Meanwhile, the streets begin to clear as terrified civilians whisper about the imposing men gathering in the district. Disguised in heavy trench coats, the chairman and his fierce subordinates arrive, ready to turn Karen's peaceful date into a war zone. Tojo rushes down the street to meet his date, apologizing profusely for keeping her waiting. The red-haired girl smiles brightly and reassures him that she just arrived, instantly easing his worried mind. He pauses, completely captivated by her carefully chosen outfit, and shyly mumbles that the clothes really suit her. Blushing at the unexpected compliment, she timidly thanks him, and the two set off together, sharing a bashful but undeniably sweet tension. When Tojo suggests they grab a drink first to plan their day, and smoothly takes her bag, their blossoming romance seems picture-perfect. However, they are entirely unaware that Yu Seong and his heavily disguised companion are secretly tailing them from the shadows. Unfortunately, Yu Seong's team isn't the only one watching. As the young couple strolls toward a popular cafe, a fiercely overprotective chairman, who happens to be the girl's father, seethes in the background, furious that Tojo dared to make his precious daughter wait. His panicked assistant quickly points out that their massive 9-person entourage is drawing highly suspicious stares from the citizens. To avoid blowing their cover before the date even begins, the intimidating group swiftly agrees to split into pairs to continue their surveillance. Inside the cafe, Yu Seong's companion is immediately distracted by the arrival of a colossal strawberry parfait. While she excitedly snaps photos of the towering dessert, Yu Seong dryly questions if ordering such a massive treat is really practical for a covert stakeout. The cafe is quickly overrun by the various tailing teams. As Tojo tries to focus on his date, he nervously glances around the room, sensing an unusual and highly unsettling number of intimidating, middle-aged men filling the tables surrounding them. Spotting the menacing chairman poorly disguised in a wig, Yu Seong realizes the strange men are directly connected to the couple. While the completely oblivious girl happily agrees to see the dolphins next, Yu Seong silently pities Tojo for the grueling, heavily monitored date he's about to endure. With their next destination decided, the couple hurries off to catch their departing train, entirely unaware of the small army trailing right behind them. The subway ride to the aquarium turns out to be a crushing shoulder-to-shoulder nightmare. While Tojo and his date are helplessly squished together in the crowd, Yu Seong takes a much more proactive approach. He firmly plants himself against the surging passengers, using his own body to shield his disguised companion from the crush. Flustered by his sudden protective closeness, she gazes up at him in awe as he gently reassures her that the uncomfortable ride will be over soon. When the train doors finally open, the massive wave of exiting commuters threatens to tear them apart. Without a second thought, Yu Seong tightly grabs her hand, forcefully pulling her safely through the chaotic station. As they catch their breath on the quiet sidewalk outside, he realizes their fingers are still intertwined and awkwardly pulls away with a frantic apology. But the sweet tension only deepens when she shyly murmurs that next time, he should hold her a little more gently, leaving him entirely speechless and blushing. Distracted by their own blossoming romantic moment, the two completely miss the crosswalk light and lose sight of their actual targets. Yu Seong logically suggests they just head straight for the aquarium. But he suddenly freezes in pure panic. The chairman's intimidating, trench coat-wearing henchmen are standing right beside them, loudly complaining about the morning commute. Recognizing the men from a previous encounter, a sweating Yu Seong nervously attempts to sneak away before they blow his cover. Unfortunately, his striking, broad-shouldered physique completely gives him away. The henchmen easily identify him and his companion as the young lady's classmates. However, instead of attacking, the gang jumps to a surprisingly wholesome conclusion. Assuming the teens are just worried friends secretly watching over the date, the lost henchmen decide that their best bet is to simply tail Yu Seong's team to find the missing couple, unknowingly creating a ridiculous double-layered stalking train. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the small army of eavesdroppers marching behind them, the young couple finally arrives at the sunny aquarium plaza. Tojo beams with excitement, ready to show his date a wonderful time. But their picture-perfect afternoon is about to hit a highly dangerous roadblock. Two battered, heavily bandaged delinquents happen to be standing by the entrance, and they immediately spot the blonde boy. Recognizing him as the hated enemy who got them expelled from their kendo club, the bruised thugs seethe with bitter resentment. Glaring at the happy couple from the shadows, they vow to completely ruin the date and exact their brutal revenge. Following Tojo and Sakamoto into the dim aquarium, Yu Seong and Rika keep their distance. Despite the low light, it's clear the couple's having a wonderful time on their date, far better than Yu Seong ever expected. Moving to a nearby park to continue their surveillance, Yu Seong unveils an impressive homemade bento to keep their energy up. Rika is absolutely amazed by the elaborate spread, happily digging into the feast as they settle in to watch. Nearby, Sakamoto and Tojo spread out their own picnic blanket. When Tojo offers the lunch she packed, she looks completely paralyzed with nerves. Having helped her practice for 3 days, Yu Seong knows exactly how much this meal means to her. Mustering her courage, Tojo presents her carefully prepared lunchbox. Sakamoto is immediately impressed by the effort, eager to dive in as he grabs a rice ball and takes a hearty bite. Tojo watches him chew, her heart in her throat, until Sakamoto's eyes light up with pleasant surprise. When he declares it delicious, a wave of profound relief washes over her. Emboldened by his praise, Tojo bravely holds out a piece of chicken to feed him. Sakamoto hesitates for a split second, making her tense up again, before he leans in and takes it directly from her chopsticks. As Sakamoto gives her cooking a thumbs up, the sweet atmosphere isn't lost on their hidden audience. Inspired, Rika playfully tries to feed Yu Seong, though he quickly brushes the gesture aside. Meanwhile, Sakamoto returns the favor, offering Tojo a bite with a warm smile. Watching Tojo get thoroughly flustered, Yu Seong realizes things are going far smoother than they ever did in the original manga's storyline. Watching the sweet scene unfold, Rika wistfully sighs that she wants a date like that someday. Yu Seong raises an eyebrow, reminding her she bragged about being a relationship guru, prompting a flustered Rika to admit her knowledge entirely comes from manga. As Sakamoto and Tojo start packing up their picnic, Yusong ignores Rika's defensive excuses. Smiling warmly to himself at how well the couple's bond is strengthening, he gently tells Rika they need to follow them. Trailing behind the couple down a park path, Yusong feels optimistic that Tojo might finally confess. But the peaceful atmosphere shatters when their path is abruptly blocked by two familiar troublemakers. It's the same two delinquents Sakamoto recently beat up. They aggressively accuse Sakamoto of being a player. Panicking, Rika whispers that they should call the police, but Yusong knows they won't arrive in time, preparing to step in himself if things get violent. Sakamoto fearlessly steps between Tojo and the thugs, threatening to put them back in the hospital. Yusong recognizes the punks as the former kendo club members who harassed him before Sakamoto intervened. They're furious that picking a fight with Sakamoto got them expelled from the club. Unable to hold her tongue, Tojo furiously calls the bullies out for their pathetic behavior. The punks instantly recognize her, mocking her makeup and teasing her for trying to look pretty instead of her usual tomboy self, prompting Sakamoto to fiercely demand they shut up. The situation severely escalates when the punks call upon their big bro, a towering former hotshot boxer named Hayashi. Realizing how outmatched they are, Sakamoto urgently begs Tojo to run away, but she stubbornly refuses to abandon him. Ignoring Sakamoto, the towering former boxer flashes a predatory grin. He roughly snatches Tojo's wrist, sleazily suggesting she ditch the pretty boy to come have some real fun with him instead. When Sakamoto furiously lunges to protect her, Hayashi effortlessly counters with a brutal punch to his stomach. Seeing his friend collapse in agony, Yusong grits his teeth, ordering Rika to stay put as he finally steps out of the shadows. As Sakamoto collapses to the ground in a violent coughing fit, Hayashi cruelly mocks the defeated boy. Wrapping his massive arms around a desperately struggling Tojo, the towering ex-boxer smugly declares he's taking her with him to have some real fun instead. But before Hayashi can take another step, a chillingly ominous aura suffocates the air. Stepping into the light, Yusong silently seizes Hayashi's wrist with a terrifying, crushing grip. As the hulking bully screams in sheer agony, Yusong ruthlessly flings him backward. His eyes burning with furious rage, Yusong viciously demands Hayashi get his filthy hands off his friend. Furious at the unprovoked attack, Yusong glares at the delinquents, his voice dropping to a dangerous icy whisper as he warns them to keep their filthy hands off his injured friend. He steps forward, an overwhelming and completely unnatural dark pressure suddenly radiating from his every movement. Nearby, a sharply dressed mob chairman and his subordinates observe the chaotic commotion from the bushes. Their initial panic over momentarily losing sight of their young miss quickly turns to fierce, protective rage when they spot the blonde thug aggressively grabbing her wrist. The furious chairman fiercely steps out to intervene, but abruptly barks at his men to halt and keep their weapons hidden. He stops them not out of mercy, but because his attention is completely hijacked by the terrifying dark energy erupting from the mysterious high schooler. A profound sense of pure terror washes over the veteran mobster, leaving his hand trembling uncontrollably. He immediately recognizes this suffocating, overwhelmingly destructive pressure. He had only ever felt it once before, radiating from Ivan, the legendary and ruthless boss of the Russian Red Mafia. Utterly captivated that a mere teenager could exude such a monstrous aura, the chairman instantly decides he must recruit him at any cost. Unaware of his dangerous new admirer, Yusong completely abandons any thoughts of sticking to the manga's original plot, stepping forward to decisively take out the trash. Sensing the immense danger, the thug leader barks at his lackeys to evacuate their beaten comrade, choosing to handle this intense newcomer alone. On the ground, the red-haired heroine stubbornly refuses to flee, bravely staying by her fallen friend's side despite the rapidly escalating violence. Infuriated by being completely ignored, the thug launches a blinding, rapid-fire flurry of heavy punches directly into Yusong's chest. However, his confident smirk quickly vanishes in disbelief when he realizes his opponent hasn't flinched a single inch, easily absorbing every crushing strike with inhuman durability. Desperate and thoroughly humiliated, the delinquent winds up with all his remaining strength, landing a massive, brutal blow straight to Yusong's face. The heavy impact echoes sharply through the park, causing the nearby girls to gasp in sheer, helpless horror as they watch the brutal strike connect. Yuseong's friends watch in stunned silence as blood drips from his forehead. Unfazed by the brutal blow, Yuseong steps forward, a terrifying aura rolling off him as he coldly declares that from this point on, anything he does is strictly self-defense. Before the thug can even blink, Yuseong retaliates with a devastating punch to the face, sending the massive delinquent flying backward into a tree. As their boss slumps unconscious, the remaining lackeys panic, horrified that their leader was taken out in a single, effortless strike. Yuseong glares down at the trembling henchmen, warning them that they're about to pay the price for laying a hand on his friends. Desperate, they pathetically threaten to call the police, a cliché villain response that only deepens Yuseong's menacing smirk. Without a shred of mercy, he clamps a vice-like grip onto one of their heads, completely ignoring their agonizing screams and desperate pleas for forgiveness. Tossing them to the dirt, he coldly orders them to get lost and never show their faces to Sakamoto or Tojo ever again. As the thugs flee, Kishimoto rushes over to Yuseong, her initial panic turning into fierce, fiery scolding when he tries to brush off his bleeding forehead. Utterly terrified by her uncharacteristic rage, Yuseong immediately caves and agrees to let her drag him to a pharmacy. Later at the park, Yuseong and Kishimoto pause when they spot Tojo and Sakamoto sitting quietly on a bench. Not wanting to interrupt the delicate, intimate atmosphere, they wisely decide to hide behind the bushes and wait. On the bench, Tojo guiltily apologizes for getting Sakamoto hurt, but he gently reassures her that the delinquents were after him from the start. His earnest, protective gaze causes a deep blush to spread across Tojo's face, leaving her flustered and hesitating as she softly calls out his name. Gathering all her courage, a deep blush covers Tojo's face as she finally confesses her true feelings, softly telling Sakamoto that she likes him. The sudden, heartfelt admission leaves him staring back in wide-eyed disbelief. Watching safely from the bushes, Yuseong and Kishimoto gasp in sheer shock as the tender, long-awaited confession beautifully culminates in an earnest plea to start dating. Tears welling in her eyes, Tojo bravely asks Sakamoto to go out with her. The blonde boy meets her confession with a heavy, hesitant silence, finally apologizing as he admits he can't give her the answer she wants. Desperate, she asks if she needs to change her boyish attitude. But he quickly reassures her she's already too good for him. He confesses that he promised to marry a childhood friend, vowing not to date until they reunite. Crushed by the revelation, Tojo quietly asks if he still cares for this girl. Sakamoto admits he doesn't know for sure, but remembers crying his eyes out the day she left, confirming she was his unforgettable first love. Masking her heartbreak, Tojo stands abruptly and forces a bright smile, promising to give up gracefully before hurrying away. Watching their painful exchange from the shadows, Yuseong tells Rika to head home while he sprints after the devastated girl. He finds her sitting completely alone at a quiet bus stop. When Yuseong steps up and gently asks if she's all right, the brave facade shatters, and Tojo finally breaks down in uncontrollable tears. Handing her a handkerchief, he urges her to cheer up. Embarrassed, she admits she's never cried in front of anyone before. But Yuseong warmly reassures her that there's nothing wrong with leaning on a friend. Sniffling, Tojo reveals she actually knew he and Rika were tailing her the entire time. Yuseong breaks into a cold sweat, realizing his amateur rom-com stalking skills were completely transparent to the very person they were trying to help. Her playful teasing quickly fades back into a hollow sorrow. She apologizes for failing, admitting she foolishly thought she could win Sakamoto's affection if she changed herself, only to realize his heart never had room for her to begin with. Clutching her chest in agony, she sobs that the pain is unbearable and completely new to her. Overwhelmed by the agonizing ache, Tojo cries out her true feelings, devastated that her first real love has ended so abruptly. Watching her cry, Yuseong realizes his mistake. He had treated everyone in this world like flat manga characters, keeping an emotional distance. But seeing her vivid, heartbreaking pain makes him realize they are real people with genuine feelings. Standing up, he gruffly tells her to keep it down before someone calls the police for a noise complaint. Startled, her tears give way to a surprised laugh. She teases him for ruining the mood, but he gently replies that she looks much better when she smiles. Pulling off his oversized hoodie, he hands it to her and announces they're going to karaoke. Tugging the hood over her head to hide her face, he tells her to scream out all her frustration so she can finally move on. Before she can protest, he pulls her down the brightly lit street. Running behind him, Tojo breaks into a radiant smile, leaving her shattered first love behind. Seeing her genuine joy, Yu Seong feels his own lingering walls melt away, finally accepting that his new life is just as real as he is. Watching from a safe distance, Tojo's bodyguard and maids wipe away proud tears. Moved by how warmly Yu Song supports their young lady, the imposing bodyguard softly smiles, hoping to cross paths with the kind-hearted boy again. 3 hours later, Yu Song exhaustedly shakes a tambourine while a fully energized Tojo screams her lungs out. Meanwhile, safe at home, Rika stares at her phone, completely oblivious to the night's drama as she wonders why neither of them has replied. Stepping into Ryuji's room for the very first time, Karen's eyes sparkle with absolute awe. Taking in the imposing rack of heavy weights, she marvels at the setup, excitedly declaring that his space looks more like a hardcore gym than a normal boy's bedroom. Curiosity piqued, she spots a stray dumbbell and confidently tries to hoist it. Instead, she strains helplessly against the floor as Ryuji watches in exasperation, dryly reminding her that the single weight probably equals half her entire body mass. How did this situation even happen? Earlier that afternoon, their casual walk to the station was interrupted by a thunderous, undeniable growl from her stomach. Flushing with embarrassment, she immediately begged to visit his family's restaurant to cure her hunger. Assuming it would be a harmless, quick meal, Ryuji easily agreed. However, he's left totally stunned as she practically inhales the food, forcing him to gently warn her to slow down before she completely chokes. Her bright, energetic praises over the delicious cooking instantly win over his mother, who happily offers her more. Sipping his water, Ryuji realizes just how effortlessly this girl has charmed her way into his family's good graces. Just as he lowers his guard, she catches him entirely off balance. With a hearty smack to his back that leaves him coughing, she cheerfully winks and announces her true master plan: a personal tour of his bedroom. Back in the present, Ryuji walks in with cold drinks, kicking himself for thinking this would be a simple visit. His stomach completely drops when he spots her gleefully flipping through a shoujo romance manga he secretly bought for otaku research. Knowing she'll never believe it's just reference material, he braces himself as she playfully teases his dirty mind. But her mischievous grin softens into genuine excitement when she spots Golden Samurai on his shelf, sparking an instant, joyful bond over their shared favorite series. Ryuji eagerly pulls out his prized first edition copy, praising the series as a flawless masterpiece. As he passionately breaks down the gorgeous art style, psychological depth, and masterful narrative foreshadowing, the blonde girl listens with bright, amazed eyes, absolutely thrilled to finally meet someone who genuinely loves the story as much as she does. Her cheerful smile widens as she casually drops a massive bombshell. Her father is the actual creator of the legendary Golden Samurai. Ryuji's brain practically short-circuits. Staring at her in absolute shock, he finally connects her mixed British heritage and familiar last name to the famous mangaka. Realizing he is already scheduled to visit her house during the upcoming Golden Week holidays, his inner fanboy takes over. He wildly grabs her hands, begging for an autograph. Moved to literal tears of joy by her easy agreement, he completely misses her sudden, curious shift in tone. She playfully taps her chin, asking why this specific series stands out as his absolute favorite among her father's many hit works. Ryuji casually admits he doesn't have a special reason, but she just smiles knowingly. Gazing down at the volume, she thinks back to the story's fiercely loyal, sword-wielding protagonist. Thinking of how the fierce manga hero bravely strikes down enemies to protect his cherished friends, she can't help but draw a deeply personal parallel. Blushing warmly, she pulls the book close to her chest, secretly feeling that the courageous samurai perfectly mirrors the reliable and kind boy standing right in front of her. The peaceful, romantic atmosphere completely vanishes the very next day at school when Ryuji is abruptly summoned to the student council room. A stern, dark-haired girl immediately commands his assistance for Golden Week. His internal panic spikes over his suddenly double-book schedule as she explains the school is hosting a Russian exchange student. Wanting to prepare a memorable welcome gift, she fully expects Ryuji to personally help her pick it out. Seeing no way to escape her sharp, confident request, he reluctantly agrees to a shopping date on the very first day of the holidays, nervously praying he can keep these two massive social appointments from disastrously overlapping. The dark-haired girl excitedly locks in their shopping plans, her unusually cheerful mood leaving the other council members thoroughly confused. Meanwhile, he leaves the room in a cold sweat, desperately hoping he can somehow reschedule his visit to his favorite manga author's house. Back in his classroom, a friend rushes over with wild gossip. The two notorious freshman delinquents who recently caused major trouble have abruptly transferred out of school. Keeping his composure, he simply smiles, secretly knowing exactly what drove them away. Settling at his desk, he feels a quiet sense of satisfaction, deeply relieved that the expelled bullies can no longer harass his friends. The peaceful morning is sealed as their beautiful English teacher cheerfully arrives to start the lesson. During English class, the new teacher, Nanae Mizuki, decides to randomly call on a student based on the calendar date. When she innocently asks for the person sitting right behind student number 24 to take the next reading passage, Yusong is suddenly put on the spot. He stands up and reads the English dialogue about a foreign tourist asking for travel recommendations. To the entire classroom's shock, his pronunciation is absolutely flawless. Completely flustered, Miss Mizuki nervously asks him how he would answer the textbook's question in a real-life situation. Answering without missing a beat, he casually recommends Osaka and its surrounding historical cities. The young teacher is stunned by his natural fluency before excitedly clapping in delight. Yuseong sits back down to the praises of his classmates, though he finds her initial fearful reaction a bit strange. As the lesson continues, Miss Mizuki can barely focus, jumping in a panic whenever she accidentally makes eye contact with him. Watching her nervously scribble translations on the chalkboard, Yusong realizes that despite his perfect academic performance, she is genuinely terrified of him. He knows ridiculous rumors are circulating the school, claiming he's a hand-picked Yakuza enforcer who fights biker gangs 50-1. Students cowering in the hallways is nothing new, but having a grown adult fear him is a first. Determined to act completely normal and clear up any misunderstandings, he heads down to the staff room. Meanwhile, Miss Mizuki is frantically typing away to look up his student file, fully expecting a terrifying criminal record. Instead, she discovers he's a full scholarship freshman representative who has never missed the top of his class and is highly diligent. Her overactive imagination immediately concludes that he must be undergoing elite deception training for the Yakuza. Just as the paranoia sets in, a looming shadow falls over her desk. Yusong leans in with what he hopes is a polite smile, nearly giving her a heart attack as she frantically insists she definitely wasn't investigating him. Seeing his looming figure and dark expression, Mizuki is absolutely certain the Yakuza has come to silence her for snooping into his restricted files. But instead of threatening her life, Yusong politely diffuses the tension, explaining that he's simply here for his scheduled career counseling session. Quickly composing herself with an embarrassed cough, the relieved teacher eagerly offers him a seat. When she asks about his future plans, Yusong casually admits he might just take over the family business. Mizuki's overactive imagination immediately spirals right back to bloody gang syndicates. Trembling in fear, she hesitantly asks what his parents do. Hearing they merely run a cozy little diner, all her anxiety instantly melts away into a radiant, joyful smile, finally clearing the ridiculous misunderstandings between them. Moving on to his academics, she notes his flawless marks in math and science, naturally suggesting he pursue a STEM degree. To her surprise, Yu-song firmly declines, explaining that it's dangerously naive to choose a lifelong career just based on current grades. He earnestly expresses that he wants to pursue something he actually enjoys, while secretly dreading the terrifying thought of repeating his past life's endlessly grueling engineering major. Touched by his unexpected maturity and clear vision for his own life, Mizuki admits that teaching wasn't exactly her first choice either. Making him promise not to laugh at her, she shyly confesses that back in middle school, she was completely obsessed with anime and dreamed of becoming a professional voice actor. During her own high school career counseling, her pragmatic teacher had bluntly told her to save her silly hobbies for later and secure a stable, realistic job instead. She had naively followed that strict advice, only to deeply regret it in college when she realized she had let a single careless comment dictate her entire future and steal her passion. Returning to the present, she looks at Yu-song with a warm, earnest smile. Speaking not as a strict instructor, but as a caring adult who has already walked that path of regret, she urges him to think his decision through carefully. Struck by her genuine vulnerability and care, Yu-song sincerely thanks her for the heartfelt advice. As he leaves the staff room, an older teacher approaches her desk, nervously asking if that intimidating student was the infamous Yakuza heir who single-handedly fights entire biker gangs. But Mizuki just smiles warmly at her computer screen, happily dismissing the ridiculous rumors as she finally sees the diligent, thoughtful student underneath the scary facade. When the Golden Week holidays arrive, Yu-song travels to Tokyo's bustling Sensoji Temple. Assuming he is early for their meeting, he casually waits by the grand gates until he spots a familiar figure in a beautiful purple dress walking ahead. He calls out to the disciplinary committee chairman, but before he can even offer a proper greeting, she dramatically whirls around with a fierce glare and furiously accuses him of keeping her waiting. Kumiko wastes no time scolding Yu-song the moment they meet, annoyed that he only showed up 10 minutes early instead of 30. After a quick apology, she agrees to let his minor offense slide, on one sweet condition. Demanding matcha ice cream as an apology, she earns a quick refusal, which she promptly answers with a swift bonk to his head. Defeated, Yu-song buys the treat, though her radiant smile quickly melts away his lingering annoyance. As they stroll, Yu-song casually asks where they should buy a gift for the incoming exchange student. Caught completely off guard, Kumiko frantically covers her blunder until a voice crackles in her hidden earpiece, feeding her directions. Operating from a parked car nearby, the Sayonji family's loyal butler and maid are running a full-blown intelligence mission. Their sole objective is ensuring their young lady's date is an absolute success. Unfortunately, Kumiko's idea of a charming gift turns out to be a massive Buddha statue. As she proudly boasts about her refined eye to the eager shopkeeper, Yu-song stares at the million-yen price tag in sheer panic. Her maid frantically screams through the earpiece, reminding Kumiko that she's supposed to be on a romantic outing, not antique shopping. The sudden scolding makes her flinch, awkwardly waving her fan to play it off as a chill. Warned not to let her date grow bored, Kumiko turns back only to find Yu-song distracted by his phone. Before she can try another tactic, he suddenly gasps, grabbing her arm and rushing them out to handle a forgotten task. Checking to ensure he didn't pull her too hard, Yu-song gently pauses their sudden sprint. Laughing it off, Kumiko listens to her maid's next instruction, smoothly steering their date toward a traditional kimono boutique just down the street. The shopkeeper presents a beautiful kimono, which Yu-song thinks is perfect for their gift. But Kumiko, determined to impress him, immediately demands to see the absolute finest item in the store. The eager clerk unveils a piece worth 500,000 yen. While Yu-song breaks into a nervous sweat over the exorbitant price tag, Kumiko casually asks for even more options to browse. After rejecting several pieces, Kumiko finds herself torn between a beautiful yukata and a kimono. To break the stalemate, the shopkeeper warmly suggests she try one on, an idea Yu-song innocently supports. Once behind the screen, the helpful shopkeeper suddenly peels off her face. Kumiko gasps as the disguise drops to reveal her loyal maid. She used secret ninja techniques to sprint ahead and hijack the boutique. Declaring her master plan to showcase Kumiko's charm, the maid aggressively dresses the flustered heiress. Outside, Yusong passes the time with a mobile fighting game until the dressing room door finally slides open. Kumiko steps out adorned in a breathtaking dark floral kimono, her hair elegantly pinned up with crimson flowers. Yusong's breath catches in his throat. Completely captivated by her radiant transformation, his previous annoyance vanishes, replaced by a stunned, blushing silence. Nervous and vulnerable, Kumiko quietly asks how she looks. Overwhelmed, Yusong is too embarrassed to voice his praise and awkwardly averts his gaze. Misinterpreting his hesitation as rejection, a crestfallen shadow falls over Kumiko's face, making him realize he just made a terrible mistake. Breaking the heavy silence, Yusong finally manages to stammer out that she looks absolutely beautiful. Hearing his genuine, blushing praise, Kumiko begins to tremble, completely overwhelmed by the sudden strike to her heart. Desperate to hide her intense embarrassment, she snaps back into her haughty persona. Laughing loudly, she boasts about her natural charm before quickly retreating to the dressing room to try on the yukata. The moment the door clicks shut, her arrogant facade completely crumbles. Alone in the quiet room, Kumiko clutches her burning cheeks, her heart racing uncontrollably as she wonders how she will ever survive the rest of this date. Stepping out of a limo in her stunning new purple dress, she draws every eye on the street. Yusong, playing the perfect escort, walks proudly beside her as the crowd stares in awe. Taking in the sights of Nakano Broadway, she wonders what they'll do next. Yusong suggests they take some time to walk around and explore the area before grabbing lunch. But later, a sudden collision in a public restroom catches Yusong off guard. The man in the suit is just as shocked, and Yusong immediately recognizes him as the student council's vice president. Back at the restaurant, his date's bright smile instantly drops when Yusong returns, cheerfully towing the vice president and his associate right to her side. To understand how this disaster happened, we have to go back. Earlier, while walking, Yusong paused at the sound of a camera shutter. He only saw a couple taking a selfie, completely unaware they were being tailed. The undercover spies breathe a sigh of relief at avoiding detection. While bickering over gathering photo evidence for their young lady, the male bodyguard suddenly realizes he urgently needs a restroom. After making their way to Yusong's favorite local ramen shop, he gets his date settled at a table before excusing himself to use the facilities. At the exact same time, the spy's stomach stages a violent rebellion against the ice cream he ate earlier. Ignoring his partner's scolding, he desperately sprints for the nearest bathroom, which perfectly explains the accidental restroom encounter. Thinking he's just treating familiar faces to a meal, an oblivious Yusong invites them to join. The girl sits frozen, her hopes for a romantic date utterly crushed by the overcrowded table. The vice president's associate quietly urges the young lady to act natural as their steaming bowls of ramen arrive. Noticing her slight hesitation, Yusong gently asks if she's ever eaten at a place like this before. The vice president immediately snaps that it's a rude question to ask someone of her status. But as she takes her first sip of the rich broth under everyone's watchful eyes, her face lights up in pure delight. After lunch, the unlikely group moves their outing to a lively local arcade. The young lady presses her hands against the glass in disappointment as a cute stuffed rabbit slips from the claw machine's grasp at the last second. But the real competition happens at the fighting cabinets. The vice president, eager to put Yusong in his place, easily secures a quick knockout and arrogantly mocks his opponent's gaming skills. Unwittingly, he just awakened a sleeping giant. The bragging abruptly stops when Yusong completely obliterates him in the very next round. Utterly shocked by the sudden defeat, the vice president stammers while Yusong gleefully rubs the crushing victory in his face. Refusing to accept this humiliation, the older boy glares through his glasses and marches straight over to a heavy punch machine. Demanding a true test of manhood, he dramatically rips open his shirt, revealing a shockingly ripped physique that leaves Yusong absolutely terrified. While the girls watch the ridiculous spectacle in secondhand embarrassment, the shirtless vice president flexes his imposing muscles. Ignoring Yuseong's panicked protests, he confidently steps up to the machine, loudly taunting his rival not to run from a real challenge. The arcade visit quickly turns competitive when a passionate rival challenges Yuseong to watch closely. Stepping up to the punching machine, the muscle-bound student unleashes a massive strike, instantly setting a formidable new high score. Pointing directly at Yuseong, he demands his rival take a turn, while his beautiful companions eagerly cheer him on, offering to pay if it breaks. Yuseong steps up with a heavy heart, realizing a terrifying truth about his own body. Thanks to this world's bizarre character buffs, his ridiculous physical strength makes him a walking disaster. Realizing he can't hold back without looking suspicious, his eyes glow with an overwhelming aura as he launches a devastating full-power strike. The sheer impact completely warps the machine's steel frame, ironically causing the system to glitch and register 0 points. As the crowd boos his apparent lack of focus, Yuseong sighs in relief, thinking he's successfully avoided making a scene. But his relief shatters as the heavy punching pad suddenly snaps clean off, crashing to the floor in deafening silence. Utterly stunned, his rival quickly slips on sunglasses to hide his trembling eyes, awkwardly declaring the contest a draw. After the rival hastily retreats with a promise to win next time, the group decides to brush off the arcade chaos. Wanting to salvage the date, they spot a nearby booth and suggest taking sticker photos to commemorate the day. Piling into the cramped space, the group finally lets their guard down. Between playfully squishing their new friend and posing in silly animal headbands, the chaotic afternoon beautifully transforms into a genuinely warm memory. Admiring the chaotic squished sticker photos, the young heiress's usually composed demeanor completely melts into a bright, genuine smile. Seeing how much she's enjoying this ordinary slice of life, Yuseong doesn't want the date to end just yet, eagerly suggesting they hit up a karaoke room for their grand finale. At the karaoke box, the group's energy reaches its absolute peak. While her bodyguard Shinjiro belts out songs with terrifying off-key passion, she finally takes the mic, her graceful voice mesmerizing the room. Soon, even Yuseong jumps in for a duet, filling the cramped space with their shared, breathless laughter. Later that night, after Yuseong bids them a safe trip home, the mood in the spacious car suddenly takes a nosedive. Her two loyal companions violently apologize, completely panicked that they let their guard down and missed her strict curfew. But instead of scolding them, she just offers a warm, reassuring smile. Staring fondly at the small, colorful photos in her hands, she silently reflects on the chaotic afternoon. Experiencing normal teenage milestones like eating ice cream, shopping with boy was certainly wonderful. But something else made the day truly unforgettable. Flashing back to their quiet childhood, she realizes it's been years since she's had this much carefree fun with Shinjiro and Minami. Gently thanking her lifelong protectors for always staying by her side, she calls today a precious memory, leaving the two tough bodyguards completely moved to tears. Overwhelmed with emotion, the two tough bodyguards loudly pledge their lifelong loyalty to the young heiress. Chuckling at their dramatic tears, she happily declares that next time, they need to help her make the date a complete success. Elsewhere, in a dimly lit studio, an artist is hard at work sketching the exact photo booth scene that just took place. His intense focus is suddenly broken by a cheerful knock at the door. His daughter, a lively girl named Rika, bounds into the room to eagerly remind him about an important guest arriving tomorrow. Smiling fondly, he admits he's looking forward to finally meeting this Kim Yu-seong she's always talking about. Arriving at Rika's house on the second day of Golden Week, Yu-seong freezes at the front door. He immediately recognizes Rika's father as the legendary manga creator Musashi Kishimoto. Bowing furiously, Yu-seong can hardly contain his awe at meeting a literal god of the industry. Inside, he's warmly welcomed by Rika and her mother, who have prepared an incredibly lavish feast for his visit. The atmosphere is cozy, but the parents soon shift the focus entirely onto their nervous guest. When Kishimoto playfully mentions that this is the first time Rika has ever been close to a boy, Yuseong panics. Desperate to avoid a misunderstanding, he awkwardly stammers that they are strictly just friends, causing a flustered Rika to loudly interrupt his excuses. Rika's mother laughs off the tension, explaining her husband is just being overly protective. Trying to empathize, Yu Seong accidentally says out loud that if he had a daughter as undeniably cute as Rika, he would view every approaching guy as a wolf, too. Realizing what he just confessed, the air turns thick with awkwardness. Overwhelmed by the sudden compliment, a beet red Rika frantically snaps at her father to stop teasing them, though her parents just smile fondly at her obvious embarrassment. Watching his daughter get so worked up over a boy, Kishimoto remembers the days when little Rika used to promise she would marry him. Hiding a nostalgic, bittersweet tear, he turns his attention back to his guest. Knowing Yusong is a massive fan of his work, Kishimoto casually offers to show him his private studio. Clutching a fresh autograph like a holy relic, Yusong feels completely fulfilled, while Rika just laughs warmly at his hardcore fanboy joy. After viewing the studio, Rika leads Yuseong down the hall to her suite. Throwing the door wide, she proudly reveals a sprawling spaces that looks much more like a dedicated shonen manga library than a typical high school girl's room. Leaving him to marvel at her massive collection, Rika steps out to grab tea and snacks, sternly warning him not to snoop while she's gone. Left alone, Yuseong slumps against the closet, acutely and nervously aware that this is his first time in a girl's room. He pulls out a game to distract himself. His attempts to relax are instantly shattered when Rika's mother playfully peeks around the doorframe. Dropping to his knees out of sheer respect, Yuseong stammers a greeting. Maria just smiles mischievously, declaring she slipped in to show him her daughter's deepest, darkest past. She eagerly whips out a thick photo album, skipping over innocent baby pictures to find the real treasure. When she lands on a specific convention photo, Yuseong's eyes widen in absolute shock. The picture reveals little Rika and Maria in elaborate, matching witch outfits at Comiket. As Maria happily admits she used to be a cosplayer too, Yuseong realizes with a sweat drop that being a hardcore geek is definitely a genetic trait in this family. But Maria isn't done, gleefully turning to a photo of Rika in full gothic middle school syndrome attire. A pale, horrified Rika suddenly bursts in, screaming. Furious her secret is out, she grabs Yuseong, frantically swearing it was just a rebellious phase while her mother retreats with a laugh. Left in a heavy, awkward silence, a completely defeated Rika slumps to the floor. Sniffling, she tearfully begs Yuseong not to breathe a word of this to anyone. Seeing her genuinely distressed and deeply embarrassed, his panic melts into a gentle, reassuring smile. He comforts her, stating that everyone goes through an embarrassing phase, and blushes as he admits he was pretty serious about his own. Intrigued, Rika leans in as Yuseong pulls out his phone, scrolling through his gallery to expose his own dark past just to make her feel better. Handing over his phone, Yuseong reveals a picture of himself lost in full 8th grade syndrome. Rika stares in sheer disbelief at the image of him dramatically posing as a dark dragon master. Amused, she notes how cute he used to be. Yuseong bashfully explains that feeling weak pushed him to start working out before high school. When Rika wishes she had met him sooner, he teasingly asks if she dislikes how he looks now. Missing the joke entirely, Rika passionately blurts out how much she genuinely likes the way he is now. Realizing her accidental confession, she slaps her hands over her blushing face, leaving them both frozen in a sudden, heart-pounding silence. The tension between them snaps like a fragile string when he abruptly stammers that he considers her a really good friend. Rika quickly forces a bright laugh, aggressively agreeing to save them both from the heavy atmosphere. The awkward silence lingers until he rubs the back of his neck and gently breaks it. He sincerely thanks her for inviting him over and letting him meet his favorite author, insisting the autograph is something he'll treasure. Touched, Rika smiles softly, telling him that today will be a core memory for her too. She insists that he's always welcome to come over anytime as payback for helping her out since his very first day. Walking her back outside under the setting sun, he declines her offer to stay longer, noting he should head home for dinner. She brightly brings up his family trip to Hawaii starting the next day. Teasingly, he warns her not to cry because she'll miss him too much during his week away. When he jokingly claims he could just swim back from Hawaii if she ever needed anything, her laughter easily clears the last of their earlier awkwardness. Offering a warm, parting smile, he waves goodbye, promising to see her when classes resume. As she watches him walk away into the evening light, a quiet wistfulness replaces her cheerful facade. Rika stands silently, her thoughts drifting back through all their recent moments together. She remembers running into him at the convenience store and discovering he lived just a couple of stops away. She thinks about the quiet afternoons sharing homemade meals on park benches. Most of all, she remembers the way he threw himself into helping a classmate and how securely he held her hand to guide her through a dense crowd. Those memories weave together, proving just how genuinely kind he is. Watching his retreating back, a genuine, affectionate smile blooms on her face. The undeniable truth settles warmly in her chest. He is far more to her than just a good friend. 5 days into Golden Week, Yusong visits Akihabara to clear his manga shopping list. Checking his phone as he strolls down the lively street, he decides to hit up his favorite ramen joint before heading home. His peaceful afternoon shatters when a blue-haired girl frantically yells for him to get out of the way. She trips wildly over a ledge, launching herself directly at him and delivering a textbook rom-com panty shot straight to his face. Recovering from the absurd, nosebleed-inducing impact, Yusong manages to safely catch her before she hits the pavement, but instead of thanking him, the ungrateful stranger simply adjusts her hat and clicks her tongue in annoyance. Before he can complain, a group of men in sharp black suits come charging their way, shouting frantically in Russian. Grabbing his arm, the mysterious girl begs for his help, forcing them to sprint blindly through the busy alleys. Yusong quickly pulls her inside a nearby ramen shop, and they duck silently below the window blinds until the pursuing men run past. While she cheerfully thanks him for the save, a deeply unamused Yusong demands to know why she was being hunted. Taking a seat at a table, she introduces herself as Sasha. After expressing surprise that he's a Korean resident rather than a tourist, she nervously tries to dodge his sharp interrogation, vaguely claiming that her situation is too complicated to explain. Refusing to get tangled in dangerous nonsense, he immediately gets up to walk away. Desperate, Sasha frantically pulls out a massive, banded stack of cash to hire him. Calculating the manga he could buy, Yusong instantly shakes her hand, officially declaring himself her bodyguard. Realizing there is no point in hiding anymore, she pulls off her cap and lets her vibrant blue hair tumble free. She casually confesses that her father is a massive deal back in Russia. As she calmly assumes the suited men were simply trying to kidnap her for ransom, Yusong stares at her in stunned silence. The pieces suddenly click into place. The blue hair and Russian background match perfectly. She isn't just a random runaway. She is Alec, one of the primary heroines from the very romance manga he has been obsessively reading. Staring in utter disbelief, Yu Seong realizes the girl standing before him is none other than Alec, the immensely popular Russian heroine from the beloved manga Scramble Love. After a quick stop at a clothing store, she steps out in a far more practical outfit, looking perfectly ready for action. She playfully reminds him that his only job is to protect her until 7 in the evening. Confident in her new disguise, she cheerfully suggests they go sightseeing since it is her very first time visiting Japan. Yu Seong is utterly baffled that she wants to play tourist while actively being hunted by kidnappers, but she insists that blending into a massive crowd is the perfect hiding strategy. As he watches her, he remembers her true name, Alexandra Ivanovna Romanova, commonly known as Sasha. According to the original story, she was supposed to cross paths with the main protagonist first, making this premature encounter incredibly strange. He pieces together that this must be a timeline right before her official introduction in the manga. While desperately sprinting away from her relentless pursuers earlier, Yu Seong had seriously questioned if a mere extra like him should even interfere with a main heroine's complex plotline. Initially, he felt insulted when she tried to buy his help, but the stack of cash she offered was simply too massive to refuse. For her part, Sasha felt quite proud of her sharp intuition, taking one look at his sturdy build and deciding he was definitely strong enough to keep her safe for the next 6 hours. Their peaceful stroll is abruptly shattered when a squad of men in dark suits corners them on the street. When Yuseong asks how they tracked them down so quickly, Sasha casually drops the terrifying detail that these men are elite former KGB agents. Before Yuseong can even process this absurd revelation, one of the agents lunges at him with a fierce strike. Relying entirely on his impressive physical strength, Yuseong firmly catches the man in the air and mercilessly slams him down into the hard pavement, sending a shockwave of intimidation through the remaining attackers. Realizing the immense danger of the situation, Yushang immediately shoves Sasha's into a nearby red phone booth, ordering her to stay back and keep her head down. He slowly wipes his chin, acknowledging that these trained professionals are on a completely different level than standard street thugs. As the remaining agents swarm him from all sides, Yu Seong faces them with absolute confidence, reminding himself of the ultimate rule in any romantic comedy universe. The guy with the biggest muscles is always destined to win. He effortlessly plows right through the agents in a brutal flurry of devastating punches, completely dominating the fight until a chilling new voice orders the men to step back, catching Yuseong totally off guard with a sudden, blindingly fast strike to his chest. Yuseong clutches his chest and violently winces, genuinely surprised by the remarkably heavy impact of the sudden strike. The towering, muscular figure who hit him proudly steps forward, quickly identified by his relieved subordinates as Captain Boris. Carefully evaluating the massive newcomer, Yu Seong wonders if his bizarre, plot armor-like romantic comedy muscle buff will actually be enough to overpower such a highly seasoned military operative. Watching nervously from the safety of the red phone booth, Sasha presses her hands against the glass, her heart sinking. She assumes that no matter how sturdy her hired bodyguard might be, he stands absolutely no chance against someone as notorious as Boris. Meanwhile, Yu Seong casually exhales, realizing he shouldn't have been so easily tempted by a quick payday. Flashing a confident smirk, Yu Seong decides he needs to wrap this up before things get completely out of hand. Moving with blistering speed that defies his massive frame, he instantly closes the distance and violently grips Boris by the face. Before the veteran captain can even react, Yu Seong wrenches his arm backward with terrifying force. Capitalizing on his opponent's momentary shock, Yu Seong relentlessly drags the captain to the pavement, seamlessly locking him into a brutal armbar. Though briefly stunned by the sophisticated grappling technique, Boris quickly forces a grim smile, relying on his years of lethal combat experience to attempt a desperate counterattack. As Boris tries to twist out of the hold, Yusong instantly adapts, shifting his weight and brutally sweeping the captain off his feet once again. With a devastating display of raw power, he slams the enormous Russian agent face first into the unforgiving concrete, ensuring the seasoned veteran won't be getting back up anytime soon. As Boris violently impacts the ground, Sasha gasps in pure astonishment, completely floored by the impossible scene unfolding before her eyes. The remaining KGB agents freeze in absolute terror, trembling as they stare at their seemingly invincible captain lying completely unconscious and motionless at the feet of a random high school student. Glaring down at the unconscious operatives, Yu Seong crackles with a dark, terrifying aura. He furiously mutters that unexpected joint injuries inevitably lead to tragic muscle loss, aggressively demanding to know who will take responsibility if he is forced to miss his scheduled gym workout. Sasha continues to quietly watch his incredibly broad back, utterly bewildered by his incomprehensible, overwhelming physical strength. Meanwhile, in a desolate, dimly lit warehouse miles away from the street chaos, a heavily tattooed operative with a thick blue beard answers a highly secure, encrypted phone call. He calmly reports to his shadowy superior, Tsar, that Captain Boris has officially been defeated. The chilling voice on the other end firmly dismisses the grim news as completely impossible, insisting with absolute certainty that no martial artist currently living in Japan, possesses the raw strength or technique required to take down their best man. The operative nervously describes their attacker to his superior, noting he is a towering Asian male with messy black hair. Hearing these specific details, Czar's tone suddenly shifts, chillingly asking if their seemingly invincible new opponent could actually be the legendary figure known as the Black Yaksha. Meanwhile, whispers of a terrifying ghost begin to spread rapidly through the criminal underworld. A blue-haired broker confirms over the phone that the legendary Black Yaksha has resurfaced, sparking a violent brawl in Akihabara. At her computer, a young woman closely monitors the encrypted chatter about the sudden return of the strongest hitman. As newer syndicate members doubt the exaggerated claims of his power, she recalls the dark history. Back in the infamous 1999 tournament held by the God of Destruction, a mysterious fighter emerged from the shadows to challenge the absolute strongest martial artists in the world. That ruthless ninja known as Kotaro Fuma dominated the finals and became a living legend before vanishing without a trace. Realizing that the feared Black Yaksha is actually her missing father, she immediately grabs her jacket and rushes out, desperate to reach him in time. Far from the gritty underworld, Yu Xiang finds himself trapped in a completely different kind of overwhelming situation. He cringes helplessly as a group of cheerful women in frilly outfits welcome him as their master. Solar gleefully explains that visiting a maid cafe is an absolute necessity when hiding out in Japan. As a maid guides them to their table, Yu Xiang anxiously checks his phone, wondering why there are no news reports about their massive street brawl. Solar casually explains that the combat agents use an electromagnetic pulse to disable surrounding electronics, finally prompting him to ask who exactly is hunting them. Solar reveals that their well-equipped attackers belong to a giant Russian military corporation. When he asks why such a powerful and dangerous organization would want to kidnap a teenager, she leans in with a confident smile, reminding him that she is the daughter of a very high-ranking global figure. Before he can fully process this massive revelation, their serious conversation is derailed by the arrival of a cat-eared maid. Yu Xiang stares in sheer culture shock as she sets down a brightly decorated omuris, stopping him just as he picks up his spoon to take a desperate bite. The overly cheerful server insists they must perform a mandatory pre-meal ritual before anyone can eat. She forms a heart with her hands and casts a magical, sickeningly cute spell over the food, causing Yu Xiang to practically cough up blood from the sheer second-hand embarrassment. Rather than let him suffer in peace, Solar excitedly grabs his arm and demands that he participate. Trapped in the ultimate otaku nightmare and unable to escape the cafe's strict rules, Yu Xiang clenches his teeth, his face burning bright red as he forces himself to comply. Forced to participate in the cafe's sickeningly cute ritual, Yu Xiang forms a heart with his hands, his face burning bright red as he stammers through the magic spell. Beside him, Solar practically cries with laughter at his utter misery. Despite the overwhelming second-hand embarrassment draining his soul, he reluctantly takes a bite and is frustrated to admit the food is actually delicious. His brief moment of peace is quickly shattered when the cheerful server returns with a sinister new proposal. She eagerly suggests a friendly card game with a devastating twist. The loser must wear a fluffy cat ear headband and loudly meow at the end of every sentence. Yu Xiang stares in sheer horror, realizing the stakes have never been higher. Terrified of the deeply humiliating punishment, Yu Xiang practically glares at his cards, aggressively vowing to crush his opponent. However, his intense determination is completely misplaced. He soon finds himself trembling in the dreaded cat ears, his pride entirely shattered as he practically begs for a rematch while Solar clutches her stomach, howling with relentless laughter. Later that evening, the two walk back through the glowing sunset, with Yu Xiang quietly sulking after losing every single round. Solar playfully stretches her arms, completely satisfied with their chaotic date. She checks the time and apologizes for dragging him away from their planned sightseeing, before suddenly stopping in her tracks. Hesitating slightly, she admits she has a serious confession to make. Looking down guiltily, Solar reveals that the heavily armed men who attacked them earlier were never assassins. They were actually her overprotective father's bodyguards, sent to retrieve her after she secretly snuck out of her hotel to explore Japan. Relieved that the danger has passed, she gives Yuseong a warm, apologetic smile, telling him it is finally safe to go home. Before Yuseong can fully process her massive lie, the deafening roar of a helicopter abruptly shatters the quiet evening. An older, heavily scarred man with an eye patch laughs, booming from the open chopper doors. Without hesitation, the imposing figure casually leaps down to the street, his eyes locking onto Solar as he playfully greets her by her real name, Sasha. Solar pales, staring in absolute shock at the massive, terrifying man blocking their path. Unfazed by the violent crater he just made in the pavement, the scarred giant casually adjusts his jacket. He stares down at the two teenagers with an intimidating smirk, confidently declaring that he has personally arrived to retrieve his runaway daughter. A towering man in a leopard print coat approaches, declaring his business personal as he comes for his daughter. Sasha immediately apologizes for sneaking out, confirming Yuseong's suspicion that this intimidating figure is indeed her father. Yuseong briefly marvels at manga logic allowing two Russians to speak perfect Japanese, while Sasha questions her father's sudden mention of the Black Yaksha, the very bodyguard she thought he had hired for her. The older man describes a legendary hitman who vanished 10 years ago, Kotaro Fuma, also known as the Black Yaksha. Baring his teeth, he declares it's time to settle an 18-year-old score with the infamous killer. But as he gets a closer look at the confused teenager, the tension abruptly halts. Yuseong politely introduces himself, firmly denying any knowledge of a man named Kotaro Fuma. Thinking it's just a simple case of mistaken identity, Yuseong tries to excuse himself. However, Sasha's father stops him, demanding to know how he managed to defeat Boris, the captain of his elite guard. Yuseong awkwardly realizes he means the giant he beat up earlier, having mistaken him for a kidnapper. Before Yuseong can properly explain, the older man launches a sudden fierce attack. Yuseong barely manages to dodge the devastating blow as Sasha cries out his name in panic. The near-miss tears right through Yuseong's backpack, exposing a freshly bought manga volume. The older man smirks, impressed that the boy blocked his strike, and challenges him to show what else he's capable of. But Yuseong isn't thinking about survival. He's devastated over his ruined manga. Tears streaming down his face, he furiously declares he'll never forgive the man and recklessly charges into a high-speed clash. Completely unfazed, Sasha's father merely finds the boy's explosive reaction fascinating, confidently shedding his heavy coat as he prepares to escalate the chaotic street brawl. As Yuseong frantically dodges the relentless attacks, he screams out, demanding to know why he's being targeted. The towering man merely praises him as a once-in-a-century genius, completely amazed that an ordinary high schooler could defeat the captain of his elite guard with his bare hands. Unleashing a fierce, glowing strike, Sasha's father demands that the boy come work under him, promising to help his natural talent blossom. Hearing this classic villainous recruitment pitch, a horrifying realization washes over Yuseong as he finally connects the dots. The truth hits him like a truck. This world is no longer a normal romance comedy. Those lines are straight out of a shonen battle series. While his life started with typical romantic misunderstandings, the genre has definitely shifted around him. It all makes terrifying sense now. The driving urge to pump iron every single day, the constant street brawls he keeps getting dragged into, and his own ridiculous gag character level of superhuman strength, it all points to one undeniable conclusion. The original manga must have changed tracks, because it was serialized in a highly competitive magazine where action dominates. The author must have caved to the editorial department's pressure and pivoted from a struggling rom-com to a full-blown fighting manga. If that is true, Yuseong realizes his life as an extra will be in constant peril, forever surrounded by overpowered maniacs. Completely unaware of the boy's internal crisis, Sasha's father continues his onslaught, sweetening the deal with promises of paid tuition and unlimited wealth. But Yuseong firmly catches the devastating punch. Flashing a confident grin, he outright refuses the offer. He figures that in a battle manga, even a terrifying boss like this old man is destined to be defeated by the main protagonist, so his safest bet is to just stick close to the hero. The rejection does not go over well. Chuckling darkly, Sasha's father instantly drops the generous recruitment pitch and launches a lethal counterattack. A brutal blow catches Yuseong entirely off guard, making him spit blood as he realizes he can't hold back against a man legitimately trying to kill him. Spotting a desperate opening, Yuseong channels his strength and lands a glowing counterattack directly on his towering opponent. However, the older man barely stumbles, taking only a tiny scratch to the cheek. Sheer panic sets in as Yuseong realizes his absolute best shot was completely ineffective against such a monstrous boss. Before the terrified boy can retreat, Sasha's father effortlessly grabs him by the face, lifting the violently struggling teenager high into the air. Gripping him with terrifying calm, the older man offers one final grim warning. In a real fight, every single strike must carry the absolute intent to kill. The courtyard trembles as Yuseong barely deflects a devastating, fiery strike from Sasha's father. The sheer, crushing weight of the attack sends him stumbling backward, desperate to catch his breath. Panting on the pavement, his mind races, trying to comprehend the bizarre, dual-fisted technique that nearly tore his head off just moments before. A cold, arrogant smile spreads across the patriarch's face as he formally introduces his stance. He reveals it to be the Romanova imperial family's secret martial art, the emperor's double-headed eagle. Before Yuseong can even process the dangerous legacy he's facing, a blinding flurry of blows rains down on him, moving far too fast for his eyes to track. Even Sasha's desperate cry for her father to stop fails to slow the brutal assault. Ignoring his daughter's pleas, the towering man barks at her to stay back, completely obsessed with capturing the boy alive. Looming over a battered and exhausted Yuseong, he offers a twisted ultimatum. If the boy submits and works under him, he will pass down every secret technique of the Romanova bloodline. It's a dark acknowledgement of Yuseong's immense innate talent for surviving an attack that would have slaughtered elite operatives. Bleeding and pushed to his absolute limit, Yuseong glares up at the arrogant patriarch. Refusing to abandon the precious friends and chaotic bonds he's forged in this strange world, he rejects the tyrant's offer entirely. Gathering every last ounce of his fading strength, Yuseong lunges forward, launching a fierce, desperate counterattack to force the stubborn old man to back down. Their fists collide in a blinding, explosive shockwave, but Yuseong's noble conviction isn't enough to bridge the massive gap in pure strength. The older man easily absorbs the strike, praising the boy's resolve before retaliating with crushing force. Driven right back to his knees in the rubble, Yuseong stares up at the immovable figure, realizing he is facing someone utterly monstrous. Unable to watch the one-sided slaughter continue, Sasha bravely throws herself into the line of fire, begging her father to spare the boy who just saved her life. But the patriarch's eyes remain utterly cold as he forcefully shoves his own daughter aside. Seeing Sasha cry out as she hits the concrete is the final straw for Yuseong. Trembling with newfound rage, he drags his battered body back to his feet, fiercely disgusted by a man who would hurt his own child to win a fight. Unfazed by the boy's righteous defiance, Sasha's father declares an end to their pointless chatter and unleashes a lethal, glowing strike meant to end the battle once and for all. But just as the crushing blow descends, a sudden volley of sharp kunai plunges into the pavement between them. The execution is instantly halted, leaving both men staring in stunned silence at the mysterious new threat that just interrupted their war. A swift figure leaps onto the battlefield, placing herself firmly between the battered boy and the looming patriarch. As Yuseong stares in exhausted confusion at the girl who just saved his life, the dark-haired newcomer confidently introduces herself as Fuma Yukika, the acting head of the legendary Fuma ninja clan. The arrogant father's eyes narrow as he pieces together the reason for her sudden, reckless arrival. He realizes she is searching for the infamous black yaksha, Fuma Kotaro. Gripping her kunai tightly, Yukika coldly confirms his suspicions, revealing that the legendary figure is actually her father, who vanished without a trace over a decade ago. Knowing they are completely outmatched in a head-on fight, Yukika urgently presses a glowing golden pill into Yuseong's trembling palm. She explains it is a dangerous heirloom passed down through her clan, designed to violently drag out a person's latent power. Promising to hold the line against the furious patriarch, she orders the boy to take it immediately. Praying that the strange medicine won't kill him faster than his enemy, Yusong throws it back and swallows it without hesitation. The reaction is instantaneous and absolutely terrifying. A searing, unbearable heat floods his veins, and he screams in agony as a massive, blinding pillar of explosive fire violently erupts from his very core. Yuseong's body erupts in flames, liberated by a sudden surge of overwhelming energy. Facing the imposing father, a massive, inscrutable aura bursts from both of them, vibrating through the air. Watching from the sidelines, the black-haired girl notes that while the pill completely unblocked Yuseong's chi, its tremendous power will only last for 5 short minutes. The father simply smirks, amused by this mysterious display of Eastern power. Shielding the girls, Yuseong glares at the older man, declaring him an irredeemable villain for daring to lay hands on his own daughter. The father just laughs maniacally, dismissing his righteous anger as the pitiful excuses of the weak. Taunting Yuseong to prove his strength, the father summons a roaring white tiger aura. But Yuseong charges forward fearlessly, his newly awakened senses tracking the man's lightning-fast movements, before landing a fierce, direct punch to his face. Staggered and in disbelief, the supposedly unbeatable martial artist realizes he is actually being pushed back by a mere high schooler. Desperate to reclaim his pride, he prepares a devastating counterattack. Summoning his ultimate technique, the Emperor's Griffin, the father unleashes a vicious claw strike he insists is impossible to block. He vows to tear Yuseong apart in a blinding flash of power. Unfazed by the deadly threat, Yuseong braces himself against the crushing force. Holding his ground, he violently deflects the man's arm before delivering an explosive kick straight to the villain's chin. The mighty Ivan Romanova crashes to the ground, utterly defeated. Gasping in disbelief, the supposedly unbeatable world champion cannot fathom how he just lost to a mere high schooler. Catching his breath, Yuseong cheekily corrects the fallen champion, reminding him that he's actually Korean. The girls watch in sheer awe, stunned that he managed to take down the legendary god of destruction. Sasha rushes to Yuseong's side. Despite his apologies for striking her father, she assures him it doesn't matter, promising to handle the aftermath. But Yuseong's concerned gaze lingers, worried about leaving her. Insisting her father won't stay down for long, Sasha urges Yuseong to escape. But before he can even take a step, the overwhelming toll of the power-up finally catches up to him, and he collapses completely exhausted. The black-haired girl quickly catches his heavy frame. With a crowd starting to form, Sasha stays behind to cover their tracks, watching with a soft, grateful smile as Yuseong is safely carried away. Golden Week finally ends, and Yuseong returns to school, nursing his sore, aching muscles. He groans, deeply regretting getting involved in such an intense, dangerous mess. Greeting his classmates, he can't shake a deep sense of dread. The absolute silence from the media regarding their destructive street brawl is chilling, making him paranoid about what the Romanovas might be plotting next. His worst fears materialize when the teacher excitedly announces a new exchange student from their sister school in Russia. As a flash of flowing blue hair enters the room, Yuseong freezes in absolute horror. Beaming radiantly in her new uniform, Sasha introduces herself to the stunned class. After listing her refined hobbies, her eyes lock onto a deeply stressed Yuseong as she teasingly adds that there's something new she's recently come to like. Pointing directly at a petrified Yuseong, Sasha dramatically declares him to be her brand new interest in front of everyone. As the entire classroom erupts into shocked murmurs, an amused classmate loudly notes that her bold confession feels straight out of a cheesy romantic comedy. Staring back in absolute horror, Yuseong sweats bullets under the sudden suffocating spotlight. With a sinking heart, he realizes his quiet, comfortable life as a forgettable background character is officially over. Unfazed by his panic, Sasha just flashes a triumphant, radiant smile, thrilled to have finally cornered him. Surrounded by a crowd of curious classmates, the beautiful Russian transfer student happily admits she learned Japanese just by watching anime. But when eagerly pressed about her true feelings for Yu Seong, she openly confesses that a man stronger than her father is exactly her type, instantly sending the school's rumor mill into total overdrive. As the wild whispers and shocking allegations pile up, Yu Seong sits utterly paralyzed at his desk. His blonde classmate Rika quickly teases him about snagging a foreign girlfriend the second she stepped out. When he desperately tries to deny the ridiculous rumors, she dryly points out he sounds exactly like a typical rom-com lead. Staring at Sasha's bright smile, Yu Seong quickly realizes she is supposed to be one of the original story's main heroines. By all rights, this overwhelming romantic affection should be aimed squarely at the actual protagonist. Instead, his long-held dreams of maintaining a peaceful background character life are rapidly falling apart before his very eyes. The ridiculous situation only gets far more complicated when the energetic red-haired Karen bursts into the classroom and playfully jumps onto Yu Seong's back. Her casual display of physical affection instantly draws a deadly glare from Sasha, who sharply orders the bold newcomer to back away from him immediately. Refusing to be bossed around by a complete stranger, Karen angrily demands to know exactly who she is. Sasha proudly declares herself as Yu Seong's future girlfriend. Not missing a single beat, Karen furiously fires back, falsely claiming that Yu Seong is Rika's boyfriend, leaving the poor blonde completely shell-shocked by the sudden accusation. The entire classroom erupts into chaotic whispers as the three girls publicly argue over him, putting him squarely at the center of a massive romantic misunderstanding. As the fierce tug-of-war escalates, Yu Seong sits in absolute horror, wondering when on earth he supposedly started dating Rika without even realizing it. Rika waves her hands frantically, desperately trying to clarify to everyone that she and Yu Seong are strictly just friends. Unfortunately, her quick denial only gives Sasha an "oh Michelle" oat. With a triumphant smile, the Russian girl tightly grabs his arm, confidently declaring that he is officially hers for the taking. Naturally, Karen refuses to back down, sparking a literal tug-of-war over his arms. Right in the middle of this intense, clichéd romantic struggle, a quiet girl with braided hair casually approaches his desk, completely ignoring the fierce screaming match happening right beside him as if it were entirely normal. The calm class representative Ayase simply asks to borrow his notes from their last lecture. After he awkwardly hands over his notebook, she politely bows and walks away. Rika watches in sheer confusion, wondering why a top 10 honors student would need to borrow study materials from someone like him. His classmates are completely baffled as to why the top-tier class representative would borrow notes from a supposedly dense meathead. Yu Seong bluntly clarifies that he actually placed first in their entire year, leaving his friends stunned by the unexpected revelation. When a supportive classmate steps in to defend his character, the girls readily agree that Yu Seong is actually incredibly sweet once you get to know him. Overwhelmed by the sudden affection, Yu Seong makes a quick excuse to hit the bathroom. He desperately hopes to keep his distance from the growing romantic chaos and steer clear of Sasha's possessive grip. Unfortunately, his escape plan fails miserably. By lunchtime, he finds himself trapped in the cafeteria, surrounded once again by Sasha, Karen, and Rika. As the three girls fiercely bicker, envious whispers ripple through the hall about his incredible luck. Sweating under the intense glares of his peers, Yu Seong desperately searches for a way to shake the girls off. In a stroke of genius, he casually brings up their upcoming midterm exams, instantly crushing their energetic moods. As the three girls loudly groan about their weakest subjects, Yu Seong seizes his perfect opening. He smoothly suggests they form a study group together at Karen's house, absolutely thrilled to finally secure a peaceful, solitary weekend for himself. When the weekend finally arrives, Yu Seong breathes a massive sigh of relief. He stands triumphantly in his room, admiring the beautiful, brand-new home gym he just built, using his hard-earned bodyguard money. Eager to test out his pristine equipment, he happily drops onto the bench press. However, his peaceful morning workout is abruptly shattered by a ringing phone. and a familiar voice on the line urgently orders him to look out his window. Peering out his window, Yu Seong is instantly hit with a wave of absolute dread. Instead of attending the study group, Rika is standing right outside his house, cheerfully waving for him to come down. To make matters worse, she hasn't come alone. Standing ominously behind her is a massive group of terrifying, thug-like men, completely shattering any remaining hope he had for a peaceful weekend. Yu-song freezes in disbelief as Sasha cheerfully waves him over to a car surrounded by intimidating men. His panic spikes when he recognizes the driver, a heavily bandaged man he had recently beaten to a pulp. Sasha innocently introduces the bruised man as her uncle, completely unaware of their violent history. Trapped in the vehicle, Yu-song quietly asks what is going on. Sasha cheerfully explains that her towering uncle acts as her shadow, meaning she has no choice but to bring him along. Sweating profusely, Yu-song is forced to endure an agonizingly awkward car ride, sitting right behind the man he recently hospitalized. Arriving at a grand traditional estate, the group is warmly welcomed by Karen and her massive gold chain-wearing father. Yu-song immediately recognizes the imposing man from a secretive prior meeting. Not wanting to complicate things, he wisely plays dumb, offering a polite bow and introducing himself as just an ordinary classmate. Karen's father stares down the boy with a creepy, knowing smile, internally celebrating that his hand-picked son-in-law candidate is getting closer to his daughter. The tension breaks when the father suddenly recognizes Captain Boris, genuinely shocked to discover that the daughter of the infamous Great Ivan attends school with Karen. Curious about the heavy bandages, Karen's father asks Boris what happened. The battered captain simply points a finger directly at Yu-song and begins speaking rapidly in Russian. As Yu-seong completely freaks out, an aide translates the accusation. Boris was injured in a brutal fight with the high schooler standing right there. The translator drops an even bigger bombshell. Yu-song also inflicted serious injuries on the legendary Great Ivan. Yu-song braces for expulsion, secretly hoping he can just return to his peaceful home workouts. Instead, Karen's father bursts into enthusiastic laughter, loudly praising his future son-in-law until a mortified Karen screams at him. Stepping into a quiet room, Yu-song finally lets out a heavy sigh of relief. The remaining awkwardness is quickly brushed off as just a weird joke. With the chaotic introductions behind them, the group gathers around a low table, immediately shifting their focus to diagnosing everyone's weakest subjects for the upcoming exams. Taking charge of the study session, Yu-song hands out personalized learning plans. He notes that Karen's biggest academic weakness is memorization and suggests she use mnemonic devices before providing Sasha with a thick stack of practice problems to grind through. 2 grueling hours later, the girls are completely drained and visibly losing focus. Seeing their exhaustion, Yu-song mercifully calls for a break, prompting a collective cheer of relief. Borrowing the estate's kitchen, Yu-song whips up a massive batch of custom-shaved ice. The impressive presentation instantly revives the study group, and the girls eagerly snap photos of the sweet treats before digging in. The peaceful break quickly derails when a sly Sasha offers Yu-seong a bite from her spoon. Though he politely declines at first, her playful pouting guilt trips him into awkwardly accepting, sparking intense glares of jealousy from the other two. As the blonde girl demands he try her bowl next, Karen erupts, loudly insisting he eat the host's food first. Amidst the sudden bickering, Karen realizes she had completely misunderstood Yu-song's relationship with her blonde friend, having wrongly assumed they were dating. Remembering how gently he had comforted her in the past, Karen's heart flutters with newfound hope. Thrilled by the confirmation that he is actually single, a blushing Karen aggressively shoves a spoonful of dessert toward his face. With midterms finally coming to an end, the classroom buzzes with immense relief. Holding up her impressive scores, a beaming blonde classmate enthusiastically credits her success to Ryu's special tutoring sessions. To celebrate their hard work, she eagerly suggests they all hit a karaoke booth together. While Ryu's other friend complains about how hard the exams were, he casually brings up a wild new street rumor. Whispers claim Ryu recently fought 20-1 against the Russian mafia. While his friend laughs off the absolute absurdity of it, Ryu nervously breaks into a cold sweat, praying his secret is safe. Before Ryu can deflect the conversation, Sasha suddenly leans in close, teasingly whispering that she wonders if the rumors are actually true. Catching him completely off guard, the blue-haired girl strikes a confident pose and invites herself along, declaring it's time to bless everyone with her heavenly singing voice. The lively group heads out under the bright Shibuya sun, their spirits high for the celebration. But before they can hit the karaoke rooms and start singing, their rumbling stomachs prompt a change of plans, and they agree to grab lunch at a nearby handmade burger place first. Suddenly, a speeding motorcycle tears through the crowded pedestrian street, aggressively clipping the blonde girl and swiping her purse in the chaotic blur. Seeing her terrified panic over the lost wallet, Ryu instantly drops his bag and sprints after the reckless thief with blazing speed. Deep inside an empty alleyway, the two thugs marvel at the surprisingly thick stack of cash they just snatched from a high schooler. However, their greedy celebration is abruptly shattered when a furious Ryu bursts from the shadows, his eyes glowing with an intense demonic anger as he demands the wallet back. Panicking, the thieves hit the gas, laughing mockingly that no human could ever outpace a speeding motorcycle. Their arrogant smugness immediately shatters into pure terror as Ryu instantly closes the gap on foot, radiating a monstrous aura as his bare hands violently crush the back of their heavy bike. Paralyzed by his overwhelming and terrifying presence, the trembling thief scrambles to get off the bike and surrender the pink purse. As the punks speed away with a stern warning, Ryu's intense aura finally fades, leaving him to sigh quietly in the dusty alleyway as he successfully secures her stolen belongings. Holding on to Rika's retrieved pink wallet, Ryu happily heads back toward his friends, completely unaware that a massive, imposing figure is quietly watching him from the shadows. After a fun afternoon celebrating, Ryu heads home under the twilight sky, eager to hit the gym. But his peaceful walk is abruptly interrupted when heavy footsteps approach from behind, and a deep voice desperately calls out to him. Startled, Ryu turns to find the giant stranger aggressively grabbing him. To Ryu's absolute shock, the intimidating man suddenly drops to his knees right in the middle of the crowded street, loudly begging to be taken in as his disciple. Mortified by the unwanted attention, Ryu hastily drags the giant away into a quiet alley. The stranger introduces himself as Kazuya Goto, confessing that despite looking like a grown man, he's actually a 17-year-old high schooler and the leader of the biker gang whose members stole Rika's wallet. Looking at Ryu with absolute reverence, Kazuya explains his troubled past. Because of his timid personality, he was severely bullied growing up, despite his unusually large build, leaving him desperate for true strength. To protect himself, Kazuya built a fake, terrifying persona, hiding his weakness behind tough actions and a roaring motorcycle. But after witnessing Ryu outpace a speeding bike with his bare hands just to help a friend, Kazuya realized what a true man actually looks like. As Kazuya bows deeply and begs to learn his ways, Ryu breaks into a nervous sweat, desperately trying to figure out how to shake the troublesome gang leader without blowing his peaceful cover as a normal background character. Suddenly struck with a brilliant idea, Ryu crosses his arms and confidently agrees to take Kazuya under his wing. The biker leader beams with joy, until Ryu instantly follows up with a single mysterious condition. Ryu proposes a simple trial. If Kazuya can survive his personal training routine for just 3 days, he will officially accept him as his disciple. However, Ryu secretly plans to put the gang leader through such grueling hell that he'll beg to quit, ensuring his peaceful background life remains completely undisturbed. Early the next morning, Yuseong tests his new self-proclaimed disciple with a grueling jog. He initially assumes the biker's massive, imposing build means he has decent basic fitness, but the heavy man can barely keep up. Yuseong is left surprisingly disappointed, realizing he subconsciously wanted a reliable workout buddy. Moving on to the outdoor gym, Yuseong gestures to the pull-up bar and challenges the exhausted man to give it a shot. The muscular biker hypes himself up with a dramatic, fiery roar, but as soon as he takes his grip, his arms begin to tremble violently. He instantly crashes flat onto his back without completing a single rep. Fed up, Yu Seong tries to call off their arrangement, but the desperate biker clings to him in tears, passionately arguing that his terrible functional fitness is exactly why he needs a master. Sighing in defeat, Yu Seong gives in. Since they still have plenty of time before school, he forces the ecstatic biker through his strict bar routine, relentlessly pushing the struggling man far beyond his physical limits. Arriving at the academy later that morning, Yu Seong reflects on the surprising turn of events in sheer disbelief. He intentionally made the workout brutal to force the biker to quit, but the man's stubborn grit actually moved him. His internal crisis is suddenly interrupted by Satoru, who runs up buzzing with excitement about a legendary student returning. When Satoru casually asks if he knows the Academy's 3 biggest beauties, Yu Seong draws a complete blank, utterly scandalizing his friend. Exasperated by his cluelessness, Satoru breaks it down, listing the elegant student council president and the fierce kendo captain, both of whom Yu Seong has already secretly encountered. But the long-awaited final member of the legendary trio is the rising teenage actress, Nao Minato. Surprised, Yu Seong asks if the famous celebrity really did school. Satoru immediately launches into a passionate rant, revealing he's a VIP member of her fan club. Brushing off his frantic friend, Yu Seong casually heads inside, insisting he's too focused on working out to care about actresses. Arriving at the gym later, Yu Seong introduces the hulking Kazuya to director Nakayama. The director eagerly agrees to a 3-day trial, thoroughly impressed by the biker's massive physique. However, Yu Seong leaves to change with a heavy sense of dread, knowing full well that Kazuya's body is nothing but a marshmallow. His fears are instantly validated when Kazuya screams for his life during a light warm-up jog. Yu Seong quickly hits the emergency stop, sending the exhausted biker crashing onto the belt. Evaluating the pathetic display, the director admits Kazuya's severe lack of functional fitness makes him nearly impossible to train. But before he can give up, a desperate Kazuya drops to his knees, tearfully begging for a chance to prove his stamina. Walking home after the brutal session, Kazuya is pale and trembling but still forces a smile, swearing he'll do anything to become a worthy disciple. Seeing his stubborn dedication, Yu Seong is torn. Stopping Kazuya in his tracks, Yu Seong finally issues a strict ultimatum. He will only continue the training and officially accept him as a student on one absolute condition. Kazuya must permanently quit being a biker. Under the evening sky, Yu Seong delivers a strict ultimatum to the imposing gang leader. He declares that his training hinges on one absolute condition. Goto must quit the biker life entirely, or their master-disciple relationship ends immediately. The sudden demand strikes a nerve. Goto hesitates, his mind flashing to the loyal comrades who supported him through tough times. Unfazed, Yu Seong challenges his definition of a strong man, insisting that true strength is meant for protecting the precious. When Yu Seong gently prompts him to consider his own family, Goto's tough exterior crumbles. A tender memory of his hard-working single mother surfaces, making him realize who truly deserves his strength and protection. After a moment of heavy contemplation, Goto makes his choice. With newfound resolve, he formally steps down as president of his gang, promising Yu Seong that he will never return to the delinquent lifestyle. They seal their pact with a firm handshake. Yu Seong immediately switches into master mode, warning his new disciple to brace himself for a grueling all-day training camp over the weekend. The next day at the local gym, Yu Seong arrives to find Goto already giving it his all. The former gang leader pushes through an intense workout, roaring with effort as he fully commits to his fresh start. The gym owner is thoroughly impressed, noting that Goto has been at it for an hour before Yu Seong even showed up. Watching him handle the heavy exercises with sheer grit, Yu Seong smiles, pleased with his disciple's dedication. By the end of the exhausting session, Goto's legs are trembling so much he can barely walk. While he dramatically thanks his master for the brutal guidance, Yu Seong suddenly remembers something he brought along. He pulls out a carefully wrapped, homemade bento, explaining he cooked extra so Goto could share a proper meal with his mother. Deeply touched by this genuine care, the tough ex-biker bursts into a flood of grateful tears. Overwhelmed by the thoughtful gift, Goto drops to his knees right in the middle of the street, bawling his eyes out. Despite Yu Seong's embarrassed pleas to get up, the tough ex-biker loudly swears he will conquer tomorrow's training and become a worthy disciple. Walking home with a bright smile, Goto reflects on how lucky he is to have found such a caring master. He feels genuinely relieved to have left his violent street life behind, but his peaceful mood violently shatters when two of his former underlings stumble toward him, battered, bruised, and desperately begging for his help. The next day at the gym, Yu Seong finds himself waiting alone. Surprised by his new disciple's sudden absence, he knows Goto isn't the type to lack grit after showing such fierce determination. Regretting that they never exchanged phone numbers, Yu Seong eventually packs his gym bag and heads out. Back under the setting sun, Yu Seong tries to brush off his lingering disappointment. He rationalizes that an ordinary extra like him shouldn't be getting involved in troublesome matters anyway. Suddenly, a frantic voice calls out to him, and he turns to find one of Goto's heavily bandaged friends. The bruised teenager nervously delivers a message, explaining that Goto couldn't make it to training today. Sensing that his passionate new disciple wouldn't just skip without a serious reason, Yu Seong stops the boy from leaving and firmly demands to know exactly what happened. Meanwhile, at an abandoned warehouse, Goto is already confronting the violent consequences of his abrupt retirement. Heavily bandaged but gripping a wooden sword, he faces down Ma'ao, the arrogant leader of the rival Devil Riders. Ma'ao smugly taunts him, boasting that Goto's abdication allowed them to instantly seize his territory. Goto vehemently argues that his old gang doesn't belong to anyone, but Mao cruelly gestures to the surrounding crowd. To Goto's horror, several of his once loyal men are already wearing the rival gang's white uniform. They tearfully apologize, confessing they were forced to submit just to survive the brutal, hostile takeover. Furious at this cowardly coercion, Goto charges forward with a furious roar, determined to make the smirking rival leader pay. But before his strike can even land, it's sharply intercepted by Mito, the opportunistic thug who immediately stole Goto's title as the new president. As Goto furiously clashes weapons with the traitorous Mito, a sharp jolt of pain shoots through his body. The grueling workout from his first day of training suddenly catches up to him, painfully slowing his strikes. Before the brutal brawl can escalate, a commanding voice echoes through the warehouse, ordering them to stop. Bathed in the sunset's glow, Yu Seong steps directly into the gang war, ready to protect his dedicated new disciple.